Welcome to the Keelhauled podcast, the ultimate unofficial source of Sea of Thieves news. And we've got plenty of news in store, so tie yourself to the mast and hold fast. Ahoy there, pirates! I hope you had yourself a good week and a good weekend. I know I did.
This week is a very special episode. It is one of the few times where I've had an opportunity to interview with one of the rare devs. This time we are going to be talking to a gentleman none other by the name of John Mcmurtry, who is also the voice of Sea Thieves. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know that I've had him do some intros for me in the past. I've slipped those in and been very appreciative of that. We're going to be diving into a bunch of stuff. The main thing is going to be talking about his job as the video producer for Rare, as we're kicking off into Shrouded Isles, as we're kicking off into the different adventures that we're going to be getting in this game. There's going to be a lot of cinematic trailers and videos that come out with that, and he is probably the best to be talking about what we can expect with that. Also, just kind of the day-to-day as a Rare employee and what that's like. You know, we dive into a lot of stuff that's both on his personal side and his professional side, but we had really good conversation, and he was much more willing to go way further than just the hour that I was kind of expecting. So really appreciate him jumping into that with me. And with that, I think let's get into that. But before we get into this really awesome interview, I have to thank the patrons over at patreon.com/Keelhauled podcast, because they are the ones that are giving their money to help support this network, or the podcast in specific. And I wanted to thank them for that, because it means a lot to me that they do so. It really helps out with a lot of the stuff that I do for the podcast. I just got some stickers, so I'm going to be reaching out to them soon to find out if they want them, and if they want like a few of them, and then try and get those mailed out. So keep an eye out for that. They're also the ones that knew about this interview well ahead of the time too. So their questions are the ones that are being asked in this interview when I do kind of dive into some of these things to help out, kind of inform some more stuff about Sea Thieves that they may have been wondering about. So thank you to El Cute, Captain Hesco, Chateau Neuf, Cloud, Cosmic Johnson, Davram TV, El Jefe Esteban, Trickster, Jabaro5, Kazia the Rogue, King Flameheart, Lumpy SRQ, Okarian Darth, Dub Goose, Evil Morpheus, Xbox Mike 29, Munchie, Regis Stella, Rust Belt Kid, Savage Hamster, Norwegian, TN Professor, Real Big Tuna, Uriel Canes, Big Bad Pad, Mina Fairy, Super Pack, Music Me, The Lore Chronologist, Deadeye Dre, Fergatron, Murphy Lives, Neon, Evil Martha, Peter Miller, Rooski Doo, Skitty Matt, Straw Hat Connor, Thor Von Blitz, Void, Windsor Chris, Captain Vane, and Zam Wow. Thank you all so much for your support. It means the world to me. So let's get into the interview, because I'm sure that's what you want to hear. I didn't really thought about that, but yeah, there's so many pets at Rare that are so used to coming in with their parents, and it's like if they don't, then there's that whole group of attention that just isn't there anymore.
Yeah, it's a shame. Like I remember Pepper, like, so the geography of Rare, where the video team sit, is a space called the Broadcast Lab, which is in there's the sort of main building as you walk into reception. We're like one floor up. I am just off of reception, and the room next to that is a room called the Conquer Room, and that's where the community team used to sit. So people like Christina, right, and Joe and Lee, and Lee always used to give Pepper biscuits or whatever sort of snack he had there. So like the minute you let her out of the broadcast lab, she'd just dart into the community room, into the Conquer Room, and like scurry towards Lee's desk. And it was great. So she had this whole routine, like in the morning, you know, you'd get there and I'd let her off the lead and she would just run, because you usually do a walk around the studio. So she'd just dart off to this bit round the back of the studio and wait for me. Then we get in and she'd check the community room to see if anyone, and no one was there usually in the morning because they come in a little bit later than me. But then on the way out, she would always run and check Lee just to see if he had anything to eat.
Oh, that's so adorable, man. But you guys you're getting back into the studio now, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I haven't moved back yet, but I am moving back tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
So like I'll be in there most of the time from tomorrow onwards. Cool. But yeah, no, a bunch of the team are actually back in there now. It's an interesting one because obviously everyone's sort of adapted over the last 2 years to what they need to do, but doing it from home. And now it's this sort of, I think people have like what they liked from that, what they didn't like from that. And they're sort of just deciding, we're trying to figure out basically what do we do going forward, because there's some people who have loved being able to be at home, you know, for certain things. There's some people who have missed the social interaction of being back at the studio, and it's just it's an interesting one, trying to figure out what your 5 days out of the week look like now.
Having the opportunity to at least like be able to be home if you wanted to is such an interesting change. I've got one of my buddies over at Blizzard. He was like adamant about wanting to stay home. Like he really, but Blizzard was kind of like really kind of against it because they've been so used to being home based in Irvine.
Right.
Yeah. But it was one of those things. It was like, well, everyone's having to work from home right now. And I think all companies, even my company, I'm transitioning from the position that I was in where I had to be at the office because everything I did was manual, to this new position where it is going to be 100% remote. And it's funny to hear like the studio at Rare is going back to the studios, and in my life, I'm going from the office to work from home. So it's really, it's weird, but I think I'll probably enjoy this. But yeah, it's just it's interesting to see like who likes what and who's more comfortable with it.
Yeah, and it's an interesting one in terms of like, you know, when people do go back to the studio or go back to, you know, a different workplace rather than their home, how you've got to manage that, how people work when they're in the studio versus working with people who are at home. And so I think there's a lot of stuff that we need to make sure that we do in the right way so that we're not leaving anyone out or it's really tricky. That's the one thing that is very obvious to me as somebody who manages people. It's like, it's going to be tricky. I mean, the great thing is we've had 2 years of practice for figuring that out as well, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And like for the video team, for example, we've, you know, thankfully our workflow, even though we deal with, you know, ridiculous file sizes, you know, gigabytes of data of, you know, footage captured and stuff like that, our ISPs have been very forgiving. Thankfully, you know, we've got a workflow that actually isn't too bad. So we've already got some of our team who are just completely remote now.
Man.
But yeah, no, I'm going to go back to the studio, and because there's a lot of good benefits of being in the studio as well. And you got the whole setup there. I mean, you've got all your equipment, everyone. Exactly. You know, it would be nice to get some of the equipment out of my house as well. Like,
You mean you don't love having like tons of lights and cameras and cables and stuff just laying around?
It's like I didn't think I'd have to dedicate a whole room to in my house to this, but yeah.
Oh man. So we haven't properly like officially talked about it, but so you've been for anyone that doesn't know, John Mcmurtry here is not only just the voice of Sea Thieves, also a very kind person to provide intros for this podcast, but you've been working at Rare for at least I'd say 7 years.
Yep, you got it. It's going to be 7 years in March. Yep.
Man, that's awesome. And you got there, you joined there, was it because of McFarlane or did you bring John in?
Yeah, so I was working at a studio called Creative Assembly, the guys that make Total War, and they made like Halo Wars and stuff like that as well.
We got to get into that then.
And John started at Rare while I was at Creative Assembly, and basically through chatting to John, he was kind of explaining what was going on, what was being worked on, probably telling me more than he should have. And it sounded really exciting. And he was like, and he was going, and I think I could do with an extra hand down here. And I was like, well, the funny thing about working at Rare is that you have no idea how big a fan of Rare I was growing up. Like, I was a massive, obviously, Nintendo fanboy. Like, and being a Nintendo fanboy means during the N64 years, at least, and the SNES years, like, it means you're a massive Rare fanboy. Like, there's no way of avoiding that.
Not if you have any taste.
Well, yeah, exactly. And it was mad because I was thinking, wait, working at Rare, what's that going to be like? Because again, it's because, you know, the studio was this thing that was, you know, used to be shrouded in secrecy. Like you were like, oh, Rare is a secretive company. Yeah. Not so much anymore, but yeah. So I was like, nah, this is just too good. Like I need to, even though working at Creative Assembly was great and it was brilliant. I was like, no, I need to make the move to Rare. So yeah, I came up in March 2015, and that was when we were working on the first E3 trailer for Sea Thieves.
Well, let's get into that a little bit, because the C3 or the cinematic for the E3 for 2016 was kind of what set the standard for what Sea Thieves was going to be, and in fact, it's been kind of the unofficial roadmap for a lot of us for the game. You know, originally it came out, you had like Trouble the Cat on the table as a bunch of, you know, the original crews kind of descend upon the galleon while there's this huge battle going on. It's in having the music tied in, but the fact that you guys really kind of had this amazing fly through of this epic battle. How did that even come across? Like, how did you guys start kind of building out what this trailer was going to be? Because so many other trailers in video games are just kind of straightforward. You know, they'll kind of give you a really good hint at like what the story is about and like who the characters are, and you know, it's always very dramatic and stuff. But this was more like anything could happen if you're just looking in the right spot. You know, whether it be diving under the water to see mermaids, you know, pillaging a shipwreck, or you know, skeletons coming after this crew who are grabbing a gold hoarder's head as Captain Flameheart sits in an archway. Like, how did you guys even come up with that from the get-go? Like, was a more traditional cinematic trailer in store and this kind of came up out of nowhere, or was this the thing from the get-go?
Well, that's an interesting one. So that you're talking about the 2016 one. So yeah, we had obviously in 2015 we had that very first sort of, you know, starting with looking at the sun, walking down to the ship and all that sort of stuff. So we had that trailer that year. That one. And then 2016, you're right, we had this sort of frozen moments in time trailer. As well as 2016 was also the E3 that we did the picture-in-picture players, first time people playing Sea of Thieves. With regards to the frozen moments in time one, like I guess that was sort of like we wanted to give a flavor of everything that was going to be in the game, like the prospect of what could be in the game, obviously as well, because it didn't all turn up there in 2018. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I actually wasn't as super involved with that one as I was with the picture-in-picture, because we knew the picture-in-picture was something we had to get. Well, the picture-in-picture is an interesting story in the sense that we had such a short time to do it. But the other one, the frozen moments in time, that was actually been worked on by Paul Cunningham and a few others. Okay. And that was a great trailer, because I think the thing about it was that we, like I said, we're trying to give you a flavor, and it was almost like we had all these amazing concept art images and stuff, like people, you know, with the moonlight shining in behind them being at the map table. It's stuff that's there in concept, and it's sort of like taking those moments and going like, okay, if you were to then transition nicely between everything, like what would that flow be? And it'd be like, okay, you've got the stairs, there'd be people coming down to attack them, you go over the side, and then what happens when you get in the water? It's like, well, what's in the water? We've got sharks, we've got mermaids, sirens, all that sort of stuff down there as well, shipwrecks. And so it was just trying to touch on all those things that, one, people would expect from a pirate game, especially a fantastical pirate game.
Right.
And yeah, like it's interesting looking back at that one, because there is a lot in there that maybe still hasn't even come to the game yet. I think you guys got it, actually. Have we got everything now?
Everything down to the rats.
Oh, that's right. We added rats recently, so that's there now. Great.
Yeah, it really has kind of. So that was kind of one of my questions was, and I want to get back to the one that you were working on with the fans that won the contest to come to the studio, because with Sea of Thieves Fest, I know I was talking to Thor von Blitz, and he was working to see if there was a way that some of us from the Sea of Thieves Fest that's hopefully going to happen this summer, if we could swing by the studio to say hi. No,
I mean, I would love that.
Yeah, I'm sure it would be awesome, but I'm willing to bet there's probably too much legal going on to be able to work that into the schedule. But so with the cinematic trailers, with everything that's kind of finished in the game now from the 2016 trailer, have you guys thought about going back to do like a new version of the moments in time, kind of the frozen moments, to kind of lead in with some of the hints or teases on stuff that might be coming in the future? Like, has you guys ever thought about trying to do a new version of that?
Not a new version of that. I mean, the one thing I will say is, and we'll chat about this as we chat about adventures, I suppose. You know, we are doing more cinematic trailers this year than we've ever done before. Literally, there will be a cinematic trailer with each adventure. So you're talking 3 adventures per season. So that's, 12 a year.
That's amazing.
So there's plenty of opportunities to definitely tease things and maybe show things that aren't there right away in these cinematic trailers. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's something like that, that maybe shows off a sort of broad experience. It's not something we have planned right now, but because we are so focused on the sort of evolving story of adventures.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, but no, I do love the idea, and I do love that trailer. It's great. It's not my favorite trailer that we've done. My favorite trailer is definitely E3 2017, because the experience of making that was just amazing. But
so let's get into that. Like, how did that kind of kick off? Like, how did you guys get started with that and getting it done and being able to pull it all together?
So E3 2017 was an interesting sort of position, because obviously we've had E3 2015 where it was that first glimpse at it, where it's showing a little flavor of what the game's about. It's a pirate game. Then 2016 we had the frozen moments in time one, as well as players actually playing the game. So when we get to 2017, you're like, okay, now you really need to show people what this game is, like, properly. Like, so the pressure there was to make sure that we were being authentic to the game, like it was all done for real, and which it was. It was just me playing the game on a controller, just trying to play as smooth as I possibly could, and with the sort of caveat that we were going to sort of compress a little bit of how long things take. So that we could squeeze it into the Xbox E3 show. And it was brilliant, because I was thinking about this the other day. Actually, it was a period when obviously people were pushing hard to get the game done, so everyone's working super hard, and then you're asking people to say, right, okay, we need to make. You're still like, we didn't release until March 2018. So you're still quite far away from launch, but you're saying this needs to look exactly as it is going to be when people play it when we release. And so you're getting a lot of different parts of the team to sort of chip in to help. But it was great, because it was one of those moments where we were sort of starting to construct it just in sort of whip form, and you could already tell that you're going like, all right, and then this would flow into this. And we were all trying to figure out, how can we hide a cut or whatever? How can we sort of transition? Because there was no way you could obviously play it from end to end all in one go and everything trigger perfectly. So going, where can we hide cuts to make sure that we don't have to play this sequence over and over and over? And yeah, it turned out amazingly. And obviously it was a bizarre experience for me, in the sense that it was my voiceover from the beginning, right from the start of the trailer right through to the end. And that was the sort of kickoff. Outside of I think we'd done some alpha content update videos by then, maybe. I can't remember. But it was
been a long time.
Yeah, it has. Yeah. But yeah, I think it was one of the earlier things of we'll use John's voice, and it's which seemed bizarre to me. I mean, I was obviously I was up for it. I was like, well, yes, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But it was still quite bizarre that, like, yeah, you're gonna chat for 9 minutes over this E3 trailer, and it's like, and then the best part about that was I got to go to LA that year for E3. So I was in the big, in the big theater with like all those, what is it, like hundreds if not thousands of people there watching the show. And then that trailer comes on, and like I said, it's a long trailer, like in the sense of it's a 9-minute walkthrough. And just hearing my voice sort of boom around the room was amazing. It was so good.
It's so cool. Yeah. And that really, it's so crazy to like have had a chance, because the fact that you guys were able to do that video, it still amazes me, because so many of those videos, plus like the inside stories, all of that footage, you guys really did have to kind of just really, you didn't have like the tools that I would normally expect for that kind of capture.
I mean, and the perfect example of that is, sometimes you manage to get something, you're like, well, weren't even planning it, and you're like, there's no way to replicate it. So, and the example of that I'm thinking of is at the end of that trailer, you shoot the last character and you turn around and you see your ship coming up over the crest of a wave. And that one time, because we're in a storm, that one time lightning struck the ship. And this was probably about, because this was a really tricky shot to pull off. Like, it was like in terms of setting the ships up where they need to be and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember we were probably about 20 takes in, or something like that. It'd been hours, like, and we were already kind of late into the evening, and people were kind of like tired and wanting to go home. And I remember doing that, like, so there's a cut on the gunshot, so it's like you start by basically shooting that person, and turning your camera around, and I remember just seeing the lightning hit and going, oh god, I cannot mess this up now. Like, I cannot ruin the jump as I jump off. I need to just make sure this is perfect now, and just being so careful. And I could hear everyone sort of holding their breath behind me. Like the fact that it wasn't, people being, I was like, oh, I was very aware. And then just making that jump off the end is like, and looking into the water, and yeah, I was so, like, again, couldn't replicate it. You could never plan for that to happen. I wish we had the tools to actually force things like that to happen, but we don't. But yeah, that was one of those moments where, like, that was perfect.
So looking at the trailers and stuff that you guys do now, I mean, going even back to Hungering Deep, or not Hungering Deep, was that? Why? Yeah, Hungering Deep, brain. You guys had shots where you had like a megalodon charging a ship, and it was a medium shot that was like following close.
So we do have we do have like some cinematic tools in the sense that we can go into sort of like free flying camera, like, okay, and that's obviously, thankfully we have come on a little bit. Like, it used to be like, I mean, the first few inside stories and stuff like that was just as a player, so how do you want to do a nice tracking shot? Well, walk slowly, like, but no, thankfully we have an invisible free flying camera now, like, that we can sort of move around and lock onto objects and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a bit easier now, thankfully. It's still not like the sort of, obviously we could have gone into something that, like, well, the equivalent of sequencer in Unreal now, like, and just done everything that way. It was an interesting point at the beginning, in the sense that we wanted everything to look authentic to how players were going to experience it, like in the sense of literally the look of the game. So we didn't do things like that you see. We do in the cinematic trailers, where it's a bit different now. Obviously, we do things like depth of field and all that sort of stuff, and we'll change the focal length, etc., and we'll add extra lights in. But for those videos, like for any of the content update videos, or for like stuff we were doing a few years ago, it's like it was always just, that's how the game looks. That's the raw game. We're just, getting it from a slightly different angle. And that was important, because we wanted to try and be genuine. We wanted to try and be we didn't want to fool anyone. We weren't interested in making a trailer that didn't really look like the game, you know?
Yeah, and that happens a lot with other games too. Like every time I see like like Elder Scrolls like cinematic trailer for the MMO, my God, this looks amazing. And then I'm like, oh, that's not what the game looks like. But Sea Thieves, ever since I saw the beta streamings on Twitch, it's like that was what the game was. And then I went and watched after that trailer, or after that open beta back in February 2018. That was when I heard about the game. That's when I found out everything that was going on. And that's when I literally went through the YouTube channel and consumed every single video to try and get caught up on what the heck was going on. Because it had been such a blind spot for me with gaming that I felt like I lost so much time not knowing what this game was at that time. And I was like, oh my God, I have to. So, and I kind of want to bring this up because I genuinely do miss the inside stories that you guys used to do. And if only ever just to bring up the fact that I appreciated having those dives into the behind the scenes for the game, and knowing that the last couple of years, that wasn't something that was going to be easily done. Going into the studio was that a series that you cherished, or was that one that was like, it was fun to do, but we've got bigger plans now?
I think, again, certainly back when we were doing them, it was super important in the sense that we wanted, again, to be sort of open, transparent, and give people, like we're saying, we're not hiding anything here. You can have a look at it now if you want. And, you know, and sometimes, you know, if it was like a behind the scenes, we'd show stuff that was actually still quite early, still quite rough. And like you say, over the last couple of years, we've sort of pulled back, certainly because during production on A Pirate's Life, there was just literally no way that we could show that.
Yeah.
And there was so many things that were attached to that, you know, like whether if we wanted to show sirens, if we want to show phantoms, it's like there was very like few opportunities to sort of show that outside of the context of A Pirate's Life.
Yeah, it would be weird.
And yeah, so it's definitely something we've been thinking about recently in terms of how do we change some of that and go back to maybe showing a little bit more of what we're working on. And I've been really bad in terms of trying to keep the consistency of the podcast. Certainly has been very inconsistent, but we are now going to be making sure we're doing one of them once a month at least. So like obviously we had the last one there with hot topics.
Yeah.
So yeah, there'll be a bit more insight from the podcast, and maybe not right away, but as we get towards the sort of middle of the year, I think there's maybe an opportunity to sort of bring back some sort of behind the scenes series as well. But yeah, it is something that I think is important as well in terms of giving people an insight into, well, it's also great to humanize the team, like, because a lot of the time people can you know, you can see comments online and they're saying, I just wish they would, it's so easy, and you're like, hang on a second, maybe we could hear from this person. And you'll see that they're working super hard and they're really passionate about it. So any opportunity to do that, I think, is actually a good idea. So yeah.
One of the favorite ones that you guys did was you did an inside story about the pair that were working on the Devil's Roar, and all it was the research and depth that they went into to try and replicate like the boiling water in the surf. And that video, it was like watching that was like watching something off of like the BB. Like it was really, really like in depth. I was like, man, this is professional. This is like hardcore. Like I felt like I just learned something. I didn't even pay for the college course for this, but I feel like I should have. So I really I love those videos. But the you mentioned something that I think is really kind of important, I think, for the legacy of the game is having these videos and being able to go back to them. But now as we were kind of getting into adventure, you bring up how we're going to be getting a lot more cinematics, and I think the cinematics were the thing that really kind of showcased that awe-inspiring moment with the game. And it's always been the thing that has always kind of wowed at E3s. I think like Curse Sales and Forsaken Shores were two of my favorite. I think especially with Curse Sales and having the skeletons encroach upon the outpost and erect their banners of war. It was like, oh, that is it's such a statement. And the atmosphere that you guys were able to do that and get it everything feeling like really, really good it was just amazing. It was just so much fun to have those.
Yeah. I love that trailer, like, because it's kind of quintessential Rare. It's like, in terms of what we're doing with Sea of Thieves, it's like you get a bit of drama, the music sounds spooky. It's like, but then there's also a little bit of humor in there with the skeleton that falls off, and it's just the skull getting carried away at the end, and then it trying to cheer while the others are cheering as they go down under the water.
It's so great.
Yeah, so like, and it's so obviously we had Shelley in there as well.
Let's bring up that, because we just got this latest adventure, Shrouded Isles, just kicked off. I've really enjoyed my playthrough of it, but having Wanda kind of being at the forefront while all this stuff is going on with the Shrouded Isles, like you've been doing these shorter trailers to kind of showcase like the kicking off of these adventures. Have you been wanting to do more long form content with this kind of stuff, like being able to dive into like what's actually going on, showing off like the actual battle at Golden Sands?
I mean, it would be amazing to do stuff like that. I mean, I think in terms of cinematics, we are going to keep these. They're all going to be roughly the length of what you just had with Shrouded Islands. So we're kind of aiming for that, 1:45 to 2 minutes sort of length. Just because I don't think we could do it otherwise, doing one a month. It's interesting in terms of what we show in these cinematics. They are sort of there to sort of set up the event itself. So it's just a little bit of story that sort of gives you enough of what you need to know, then going in and exploring around during these events. There are going to be things in there that I'm trying to figure out how much I can say. There are going to be things, because we'll get into this in a little minute, but I've written and the trailers for all the way up to the 5th adventure so far. So that takes us quite far into the year.
Definitely.
But
the Performance Package 4.0 by Manscaped has arrived, and oh man, it is a game changer. Inside this package, you'll find the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, the Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, the Crop Preserver ball deodorant, and the Crop Reviver toner, performance boxer briefs, and a travel bag to hold all your goodies. First off, the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer is probably the future of grooming, and dare I say, the greatest ball trimmer ever. Their 4th generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology, and the Lawnmower 4.0 is waterproof and also has a 400,000 LED spotlight you need for a more precise shave. Because this trimmer is waterproof, you can say goodbye to the mess on the bathroom floor. And you thought that was good, but you want to take your grooming game to the next level? Easy. The Performance Package 4.0 also includes the Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer, and the Weed Whacker is also waterproof and provides that same proprietary skin-safe technology, which helps reduce nicks, snags, and tugs on those delicate nose holes. Their Crop Preserver ball deodorant and Crop Reviver toner will help change the way you approach your hygiene routine. And trust me when I say this, fellas, your balls will thank you. Manscaped even threw in 2 free gifts to their Performance Package 4.0, the Manscaped Boxers and the Shed Travel Bag. Bring your comfort and the boxers to another level, and it's time to take care of yourself. So go to manscaped.com and get 20% off the free shipping and code with Keelhauled. Again, if you guys don't believe me, I've been using this for a couple weeks now. I really love it. One of the things that I didn't know about, and I'm going to grab the box now to kind of talk to this a little bit as I dump all the stuff out. I didn't know this until I started reading more about the package, but Manscaped has actually paired with Testicular Cancer Society. And it says Manscaped is not only the world's preeminent male grooming brand, but also the voice and movement of liberating men of all ages to be the very best that they can, to being mindful, socially aware, and respectful to one and all is the core of their mission. So they're giving back, and that's why they've partnered with the Testicular Cancer Society to raise awareness for the most common form of cancer in men ages 15 to 35 to help save balls. So if you want to learn more about how they're doing that, you can head over to www.testicularcancersociety.org to find out details about that. And again, if you want to save money on this, you can get 20% off and free shipping with the code Keelhauled at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com, and use the code Keelhauled and unlock your confidence, and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. I don't want you getting in trouble.
Yeah, no. I'm just trying to think. There's definitely things in the trailers beyond setting up just that immediate event as well. Like, that is the main purpose of them, but we're gonna start showing things with characters that'll then be resolved a little bit later down the line as well.
That's what I love. I love, like, you and the team like do such a great job with the little teases and the breadcrumb trails that you guys do. It's been great to have these moments where it gives the community a sense of a point of access, and then just enough to kind of step beyond that point to speculate with. Yeah. And it gives us something to chat about, to kind of talk about and have fun with. And I don't want to dive too deep into any of the stuff that happens in the first adventure, because I know a lot of folks are still waiting to get a chance to finish that up. So there's some spoilery stuff that I'll probably talk about later on. But it's been really cool just to kind of see like what you guys are willing to push with this, and having, Wanda being the access point for this first adventure is very telling, based on just what was going on with the orb stream that happened over Christmas, as well as like how her connection to the Warsmith and how that's going to play out. And there's all this kind of like lead in that you guys have been doing a little bit over the last few months that has been really fun, just to kind of try and break down. And I think that's what I'm looking forward to with these adventures.
Yeah, I mean, and for us, it's amazing because we love, I have a personal sort of passion of just browsing through Twitter and on Reddit and stuff like that, and seeing what people are chatting about, what little things they've found or what they think might be happening, and whether that's the right thing or not, I don't know. But we're really excited by that sort of stuff. So we like, sprinkling little teasy things where we can. Some of it is unintentional occasionally, like sometimes something will sneak into the background of a shot in a music video, and we didn't mean to put it there. But most of the time it is intentional, and then we just like to see whether, one, anyone notices it, and two, if what people think it could possibly be. But yeah, I think in terms of what we're doing with the cinematics for adventures, it's really exciting. Like it's for me, it's great because it's like it has been a while since we've done something like very cinematic. So the fact that we're now into this sort of cadence of let's do one a month, it's just super exciting because they're a lot of fun to make.
Do you ever worry that the what you do for the videos doesn't, like, it gets missed when people aren't paying attention to that, and it's not something like, do you ever feel like there's too much restriction in what you guys put into these videos? Because like right now, I the reason why I'm bringing it up is because I think of like Athena's Fortune is a book that is widely available before it was an audiobook, and I still run into a lot of people who have not read it and gotten a chance to actually get the story about Ramses and Larinna and stuff, and now there are these characters in Sea of Thieves that a lot of people have no context for. With you guys moving into adventure, do you have any worries about them missing out on the cinematics that might add clues or context to stuff that's going on in the game?
Yeah, it's definitely something that we've been thinking about. Certainly, as you said, as we moved into adventures. I can't say anything right now, but we are looking at ways in which to to sort of surface lore to people in the game in a way that's sort of very easy to consume. Almost not. I'm not saying it's going to be like here's the catch up page, or whatever. But we're working on something that'll make it so that you can go back and sort of, if you're interested, if you're going, whoa, that was an interesting little adventure that I just played. How did this happen? You can go back and then have a look at how did this happen. So yeah, we are thinking about it, and yeah, because that's the big thing for me as well. Like, as you know, somebody who spends a lot of time making these videos, is one, how many people can we get to see it? Because obviously not everyone's subscribed to our YouTube channel, although if you're not, you should be. And so how do we make sure that people who are just playing the game, who come in to get exposed to that as well? So that's something we're working on as well.
That's really cool. Because that's it. As someone who's like adamant about the lore in the game and consuming all the stuff that you guys put out, I'm always there for it, but it always feels like I always feel like either right on the edge of what you guys are putting out or like coming up to it. And there's so many people that I feel like have missed out on so much, either because they're either just getting into the game now, which is amazing, or they just don't know where that content is surfaced, which obviously for me is okay, because I get to do a podcast about it, and it helps kind of surface that stuff to people. But
I think as well, sorry to interrupt you there. I think, what was I going to say there? Yes. I'll interrupt you and then forget what I was going to say. I think, as long as we make it like, and it's something that designer are conscious of, as long as people coming into an adventure or whatever voyage or story we want to tell, they shouldn't have had to have seen like a video that I've made or the team that have made, to be honest, and they shouldn't have had to have read the book. It should enrich their experience if they have, like that's for sure. But I think as long as we can sort of tell those stories within the game without having to, say, oh wait, you didn't watch the cinematic for Shrouded Islands? Oh well, then you're not going to have a clue of what's going on. I don't think that's the right approach. It should always be an additive, sort of enhancing thing. So as long as we're sort of covering that in game, in design, then people should hopefully still get a decent experience out of it, more than a decent experience out of it, even if they haven't, caught up with all the lore. Obviously, that being said, I mean, I'm in love with the lore probably as much as anyone, so it's like, I wish everyone would go and sort of read all that, because then they can get all the little references and things that we're putting in there, and they'll get more out of it if they do.
Well, that's like, because that's kind of the thing that I'm wondering. I mean, as the head of video production, like one of the questions that I got from the community was, they were wondering about, like, you guys have had connections now with Disney, and it's done really well for A Pirate's Life and stuff. But I mean, what is kind of like your next dream? You're working at Rare, you're making videos for people. Like, are you any aspirations for trying to work out a deal with Disney? Like, is that a dream that you have, as far as like trying to come up with a Sea Thieves TV show and being able to take this world and give it more life through like a video format? Like, is that? I mean,
things like that would be fantastic. It's not something. It's not like I have no idea whether anything like that is in the works. And I can sort of say that if it is, I haven't heard about it. So, but I mean, obviously, I would love to see this universe expanded in lots of different directions. And, I'm sure lots of people on the team as well have different ideas about what would be the best way to sort of, expand the expanded universe of Sea Thieves. And at the moment, obviously, we've already got one book out. There's other stuff on the way.
There is a second confirmed as of not this latest podcast, but the prior podcast. We did get that confirmed. We did get that confirmed.
Awesome. Yep. Yes. Cool. Yeah. Yeah. Chris is working on that second book. Yeah. And that's going to be awesome, because obviously there's a ton of stuff in there that ties into the storyline that's being told
I can't wait. I can't
this year
wait.
through adventures. Yeah, it's gonna be very, very good. Very,
Yeah.
very good.
I'm super excited for that. And that's there's all kinds of good stuff. And there's so many characters that are in the expanded universe that still haven't made their way to the game. So with having like the adventures, I feel like this is a perfect opportunity to kind of take what I've enjoyed about, say, like the comics, where the comics have been great to kind of showcase like different crews and, you know, having these other characters who are very interesting to me being brought to the game. Unfortunately, with things like with Arena being closed, everyone's kind of had questions about what's going to happen to DeMarco and Lassetti. And it's like, well, you know, now they're kind of free to do whatever they need to. If they're not Heading up Arena, well, that means they could literally go do whatever they want in adventure.
Yeah.
So I love that the adventures are giving you a way to kind of showcase some of the stuff that you guys have done in the past with the cinematics, because I think that was the thing that I've probably bugged Mike the most about in the past is like, dude, I want those big cinematic trailers. They were my favorite things about the game, because it shows the world in this just beautifully lush live state, you know, like a pirate wandering in during the middle of a storm to Madame Olivia's and dumping out a whole bunch of junk out of his pocket, and there's Shelley just happens to be in his pocket.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The adventures are the perfect way to sort of bring additional characters in, and just to bring additional character into the game. It's like, even just in game, forgetting cinematic trailers, the adventures have so much more work being done on animation, on voiceover. Like, every character you speak to, you know, is properly voiced. It's not just always text dialogue box, and that's interesting from our side as well, because obviously we can sort of lean into making the game feel slightly more cinematic through adventures, and yeah, like I say, and also have cinematic trailers themselves. But it's going to be cool to see which characters come in, which characters get their stories expanded. There's plenty of opportunity. Like I say, there's an adventure every month, so loads of opportunity to do stuff.
You bring up a couple of things that I wanted to dive into. You've worked with a lot of voice actors in the last bunch of years, and not to pick favorites, but I've always been curious. Were you able to work with Matt Berry when you guys were working on that advertisement for
Forsaken Shores? You know, honestly, I would have loved to have his voice in the game, because I think he's an amazing actor. He's just hilarious. Like, he's got such a great sort of like unique voice. But no, it was just that one trailer, and then that was him done. But that would be amazing. And it's funny, there's actually, I actually think even though they're not celebrities, the voices we've got, some of them, the actors that are doing the voice's, they're absolutely incredible. Like, I'm actually lucky enough that I'm in on every voiceover session that we do for the game. It's sort of a weird sort of turn of like, who's doing this. So because when we got voice actors who weren't just people from Rare, the first time I ever did that was actually for Hungering Deep, for the actor who voices Merrick.
Yeah.
And so because it was a trailer, it was kind of like, all right, John, you should be in this session just to make sure you're getting what you need for the trailer. And then it sort of evolved that every other external voiceover session after that it's usually me and one other person. So usually it's me and Mike who will be there sort of directing that session. And that's gone. Now we've gone through how many different characters through the different tall tales and all that sort of stuff. So it's one of the like big joys of my job, is getting to sit on these voiceover sessions and direct them, and sort of listen to these people just do magic over a microphone, which is amazing.
Well, I mean, they're lending their talent to that, but let's not discredit your ability to take that and then put it together in a way that...
Oh, I thought I was about to get a compliment on my voice there. All right, now, okay.
Oh my God, no, that is not where I was trying to go with that. No, your voice is amazing. Come on.
That shows you where my ego is at. It's like, oh, he's going to talk about my voice now that he's talking about amazing voice acting. Like.
You will always and forever be the voice of Sea of Thieves. There's always, and the fact that when I reached out to you about doing the intro for my podcast, and the fact that I just wanted like one take. I figured one take would be satisfying. I just wanted to, but then you send me like 45 minutes of options and stuff, and I'm like, oh my God, this is gold. This is. I feel spoiled.
I think I thought that would have annoyed you. Like, oh, really? He didn't just pick a few selects. Come on.
No. It's like I've got options for days. This is amazing. This is so great. So how do you feel about doing the voice now? Like, is it something that you still really get a kick out of? Is it still kind of have that?
It's truly bizarre. Like I was saying, it's kind of surreal. When your voice is coming out like on an E3 show that's been watched by millions of people, and to a smaller extent, obviously we have the people that listen to or watch the content updates for every season update and stuff like that. So it's amazing, and I feel so privileged that the people at the studio were like, yeah, why not? Like sure.
When is your pirate going to be the next Bell or the next Ramses that we talk to, where you actually get to do the voice for an adventure?
Well, this is interesting. It's like, I don't know if we can ever reveal what my pirate looks like. I think that'd be, because people must have a sort of image in their head, and it's always going to disappoint someone. Like, so I don't know if we can actually put a face to this voice.
Well, what about the Cursed Captain? The Cursed Captain doesn't have a face per se.
Do you know? Yeah, sorry.
Not to disparage Johnny Glenn. I think that the Cursed Captain is a great character. But I mean, we've got ways to work around this. Like, would you want your pirate to be the pirate that was that, or would you want like an original character that was kind of separate from your actual pirate?
I think if I was to ever do a voice for like in the game, or like, well, it's funny, I do some voices in the game already, but if I was to do something that was going to be like featured in a cinematic, I think I would want to change the voice completely so it didn't sound like my content update voice or whatever. I don't know. I feel like I don't know. You'd have to do something. This sounds massively like I've got a massive ego, but I was like, you'd need to do something special with that voice. But yeah, I don't know. I think leaving him faceless at the moment is actually kind of nice. Yeah.
Well, I mean, at least in that case, you don't have to worry about Mike trying to kill him off.
Well, exactly. Did he? Oh, I'm trying to think. Has anyone told this story? I'm sure Joe mentioned it, or maybe Mike mentioned it. Like,
is this the Shelley story?
Yeah. They'd wanted. I can't remember. Did he tell you exactly how he wanted to kill Shelley off?
Yes, I believe. Oh gosh, I think this was I think this was in the last podcast, or the interview that Joe did, that Joe Neat did recently with Miles Dompierre, where he talked about having the castaway open up a jar, and Shelley would come out, and then she would eat. Yes,
that was it. It was literally like she was going to dangle Shelley above her mouth and go like, and then that formed part of her ritual. Like, there's no way we could ever do that to poor Shelley though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Shelley's going to be like the watermark for the rest of time, as far as like any video that comes out that's a cinematic. Like, everyone's going to be like, okay, but where's Shelley?
Do you know, that's interesting, because now they're moving on to adventures and doing these one a month. It's like trying to squeeze Shelley in is an interesting challenge. You're trying to maybe tell a bit of dramatic storytelling, and then you're like, all right, where do we put the comedy crab in? And we've managed so far. She's in all the way up to, like I said, I've written up to the 5th adventure, so she's in there.
So cool. I can't wait for that. The little hand puppet duel in the weapon shop. This first one is so cute. It's such an adorable. It's like something you would expect to see with like a parrot or anything, but it just happens to be a crab.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so much fun. I'm curious because we talked a little bit about the podcast, and not to talk so much about like the frequency, but you guys have moved away from the weekly Sea of Thieves news, and for me that was devastating because from what I am used to doing, I'm used to living off of the content that you literally put out. If it wasn't for your content, most of my stuff would be reading patch notes and trying to come up with something each week. But because you continue to put out more content, I always have something I can kind of give to other people and speak to. So thank you for that, first off. But with the podcast, it's one that's going to be, you know, a month to 6 weeks, depending on if you can get people together or if something happens and it has to get pushed. Was the podcast something that you guys wanted to do, and why haven't you guys hired me yet?
We should hire you, shouldn't we? Like,
yes.
The podcast has been an interesting one because you're right. It's actually quite hard to corral people to sit in a room together. I mean, I suppose for the last little while it's been to jump onto Zoom or whatever for an hour and a half for the last couple of years. But it's an interesting one. There, usually we'll have Joe and Mike on there, and they're both very busy. But we are committed to making sure that it's one a month. So even I'd like to say that it's going to be at least every 4 or 5 weeks you'll have a new podcast. It's tricky though, but it's so important. I think Joe sort of mentioned this on the last one. He's missed having this sort of avenue that he used to have with the weekly update, where he'd be able to just to explain what's going on, to sort of just connect with the community a little bit better. And while the frequency of a week was just a little bit harder, it was great when we were in the studio because literally it was just like, the tavern was always there. It was always set up, ready to go. Cameras could just be whipped out and we knew where we were sitting them because it was the same every time. And Joe had got so good at it that he could be like, yep, rock up like 5 minutes before, sit down and go, okay, ready to go. And he would just, do his thing. So that made that cadence easier. It's definitely got harder, certainly from working from home. But we're definitely gonna have Sea of Thieves news at least once a month. We're gonna have the podcast once a month, and then if there are opportunities to add extra bits and pieces in there as well, whether that's there'll always be stuff like season update videos. There'll be the deep dives that we do for each season as well. So there's other opportunities, I think, to speak a bit more candidly to the audience as well. They'll be coming a little bit later in the year, I think.
I really appreciate it. It's the last episode I think I went through 3 times just to try and make sure that I got notes and break it down and get a chance to seeing. And there was even a little clip where because Mike always tends to go into his kind of Sea of Thieves pitch mode. Yeah. And I love when he does it because he you can see the passion starting to come out. And it was a moment where Joe was looking at Drew and he literally like nodded his head towards Mike and he's like, you see, he's doing it again. And and I love having that dynamic between, because it feels like a bunch of friends sitting around at a table just having fun talking about stuff.
That's definitely what was missing during the last 2 years, in the sense of doing these over. It's never the same if you're just doing it over Teams or Zoom or whatever. Being in the same room and being able to sort of give someone a little glance and give them a little they know exactly what you're thinking. That stuff is just, and that, you're right. I mean, this team is just a big group of friends, and especially Mike and Joe, who have been working together for so long now. They're almost like a bit of a married couple.
It really is. It's like mom and dad, but I can't label either of them, because it's like Mike is always wanting to give us sweets and Joe is always wanting to like hit the skeleton ship button to make us feel like so like everyone always curses Joe when something goes wrong or we get rared in Sea of Thieves, and everyone's always like praising Mike for all the glorious lore that we're getting in. And it's so funny how their relationship is kind of fed into the culture of the community, and it keeps cracking. Are you still carrying Joe in Warzone? Have you guys moved on from that?
It's funny, I actually haven't played Warzone in ages, like much to my shame. I've been too busy. I've been playing a lot of Tetris connected, like
really.
Yeah, I love it. It's so good. Like
it really is good.
Like I've been literally been playing it for years now. Like, but I play it with my wife like in the evening. Like we usually have a few zone battles against each other.
Oh, that's funny.
And what else have I been playing actually recently though?
What did you get into Halo Infinite?
Oh yeah,
I feel like you had to.
Gosh, it was amazing. Well, it's funny. I still need to go back and do my legendary playthrough, but I did the whole scouring the map and found everything. I found every little equipment drop thing. I found all the upgrade points. Yeah. So I've done all that. I thought it was great. Honestly, it was one of the best, mechanically best Halos. I'm almost going to say it could be. It's like maybe my second favorite Halo game ever, probably. Like
next to 3.
Yeah, 3 just even if I'm sure if I went back and I haven't played 3 in a while. I'm sure if I went back and played it, I'd be like, like you feel a little bit slow or feel a bit floaty or whatever. Like
I don't know, man.
Like it's got so many good memories for me. So many good memories because I remember that was during like. I think when did that come out? 2000.
You'd know more than I, because I was out of. I didn't game between, or I was playing World of Warcraft between like 2004 and 2010. So I missed out on like a whole generation. So I just recently went back and played through all of the Halos before Infinite.
Oh,
and I gotta say, like 3 still really holds. I think 3 is probably one of the best of all of them as far as like feel and play style and story. It really does hold up. It really does. I think 4
that's amazing.
4 was definitely up there, and I know everyone kind of hated on 5, but I actually really liked kind of the crazy steps that they were going with 5. It was a really cool set piece. But yeah,
I've just got so many good memories of 3. Like I just remember it was, so I just checked there, it was 2007 it came out. And I just remember like playing like co-op. Like I love the fact that the single player worked so well in co-op mode as well. I say single player, the campaign mode worked so well in co-op. But I remember just playing through like Halo 3 multiplayer. Like I was always playing Halo 3 multiplayer like every night. And yeah, like that game, you're right, story wise as well. I think that they got the balance perfect. On that. It was such a, it was, it felt like the end of a little arc, a little story arc at the end of it, like, and it felt great. Yeah, no, it's funny. Like, I've got so many good memories of Halo just in general, like as a series. But playing through Infinite, I thought it was brilliant. Like genuinely, like I kept. It was one of those games where I kept on, like when I wasn't playing it, I was like, oh, I really want to go back and just have another little shot on it. Even once I'd like gone through the story, like finished the campaign, like I was still wanting to go back into that world and grapple hook around the place. Because
I mean, I can imagine that you're kind of the same way that I am when I listen to other podcasts. I like, part of me in the back of my head is constantly kind of like judging and analyzing other people's work to kind of see like if there's something I like that I want to implement, or something that someone's doing that I think would be something cool to kind of dive into. Like with a lot of the storytelling in Infinite's campaign, it felt really natural to me, just based on the flow of how the world was going. Do you take things that you play and see like how you can apply that to the content that you're looking to put out, or do you kind of have like an idea going in what you want and you've already got it kind of worked out? Like you've talked about having stuff already planned. Do you get inspired by other stuff, and were there any examples of that you can think of?
Oh, absolutely. Like, I mean, all the time. Like, it's funny. Like, I think a lot of what your style is informed. Well, I feel like my style was informed when I was like in my teens and into my 20s. So whatever I was watching then, which was a lot of different stuff, has sort of stuck with me. I always really like, in terms of cinematography and stuff like that. Like, I don't know why this came into my head, but again, I was thinking about this morning. Indiana Jones. This is such a weird one to bring up, but like the Indiana Jones movies, I always think about like, how do I like tell a story within a frame? And I think that's got honestly some of the best examples of that are in those movies. Like, just even thinking of like when Indy comes into Marion's bar in Raiders of the Lost Ark, and it's like his that like iconic sort of silhouette of him up against the like his shadow being cast from the fire up against the wall. It's I don't know, there's something about those movies that Spielberg's managed to like, and it's got that same adventurous spirit that is very important to Sea of Thieves. And so I'm always trying to take bits of things like that that live rent free in my head because they're just like, ingrained there. And trying to put that in there. So it's like, whether it's things like, I mean, there was a little homage to Spielberg in the Shrouded Islands trailer, which is like the shot of the keyhole with this sort of light coming through it is straight out of Close Encounters. Yeah.
It's there was, and even in the, I was talking to a friend of mine. We were going through the actual adventure. And not to spoil what was going on, but there was an object that was being held up in reverence during one of the memories. And it was funny because the person that I was with, and I'm not going to throw them under the bus for this. They were like, really? That's it? That's all that is? I thought it'd be more elaborate. And I'm like, no, come on, think about who is making this game. They're all fans of Indiana Jones. It's the cup of a carpenter.
Exactly.
Of course, it's going to be a really nonchalant, very very basic cup. That is like the quintessential thing. It was so funny. I was just like, I get it, and I hope that I'm right about that because it totally makes sense based on who I know is working on the game right now. But it's funny you bring up Indiana Jones because I just finished for the first time. I just finished playing through Uncharted 2.
Cool.
I saw a lot of DNA from the Indiana Jones films. In Uncharted 2, and I was just, it was such a breathtaking game to be able to play through, and seeing those like cinematic moments in that game. I was just like, man, that's the kind of stuff that I wish I could see come into play in Sea of Thieves.
That's like the gold standard, isn't it? Like,
it's hard, yeah.
I mean, Naughty Dog are just the masters of that sort of cinematic style. Like, and they're the masters now of figuring out how to create those really strong emotional attachments to the characters that you're walking alongside as you play the game. I think there's definitely I think it's always difficult for a game like Sea of Thieves to sort of strike that same balance. And whether it's in the case of like something like A Pirate's Life, it's whether you send the player off to an area where you can create something slightly more authored and curated, like the Sea of the Damned. That's always going to be a challenge for us because obviously we don't want to strip away that thing that makes Sea of Thieves magic as well, which is the fact that this is a world where you play alongside other players, and that it can be that can obviously result in multiple different things, but quite often it results in magic as well. So you don't want to. Yeah, it's tricky because I would love to see something that was way more cinematic and way more sort of like a bit of a roller coaster thrill ride. Where it's like the track might be the same every time you play it, but it's a tricky one in a game like Sea of Thieves.
Yeah, especially because of how good the game is at being able to have that shared world and be able to try and make sure that you're doing something like having something really cinematic is where I think the work that you're putting out is where you can kind of have some of those moments. that we may not be able to have in game just due to limit. Like, I'm never expecting Deadshot Charlotte to be running up to the beach and flagging me down as I pull up in my sail and be like, you have to get over here right now. You're never going to believe what I found in this, uncovered from some skeletons that were coming out of the ground. You know, I never expect that will be something, because that's exactly what I would expect from like a single player game where everything can be catered to that one person's experience. And you know, just looking at Lorena right now, everyone is like, okay, Flameheart's gone, but Lorena's yelling at me like...
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because like the adventures certainly are our path to do something more cinematic and a bit more authored, in the sense that, like I said, I know the animation team have been pushing really hard to try and up the quality of, like, you know, like when you're when you're in that first adventure, the Shrouded Islands, like when you're speaking to Belle, like, you know, she's got a fully sort of animated little sequence when she's talking to you, and she's performing. It's literally a performance that they've managed to get, and I think they'll be like the same way that we are trying to push what we're doing with trailers and videos cinematic wise. I think they understand that these adventures are meant to be more cinematic, so I think they'll be pushing that side as well. And there will be some things I've read through the in-game scripts for up to Adventure 5 as well, and there are some bits in there that I think, you know, like, I think you'll get a kick out of actually seeing it play out. So
I can't wait. I'm genuinely like just excited to see what's going, just based on especially if there was anything I could ask for from the game right now, it would be literally the emote of Belle when she walks into the Sea of the Damned Tavern, and she's like, she puts her hand, she's kind of like waving him to kind of sit down and just chill out. She's like, sit down, Ramsey's like, I want that emote of her doing that, because it was such a good moment. And before, I'm running out of time with you, but I wanted to be able to kind of ask a couple quick questions. With the Sea of Thieves news stuff that you guys put out, being in the studio kind of gives you that opportunity to have some of that fun background stuff that is such in the DNA of Rare. Like, how do you guys brainstorm that stuff when you're doing it? Is it all kind of like on the day of shoot when someone's like, oh, you know, it'd be funny if we had a chalkboard or a whiteboard in the background and just a giant owl with a slash through it? Or is that something?
Yeah. That is pretty much you're kind of bang on. That is kind of on the day. What did we see on Twitter? What would either you know, if you're looking at it, if you're feeling a bit evil, it's like, what would annoy people, like, or what would or what will give somebody a little laugh. And yeah, the owl one was interesting, but as you saw in the background, the gold hoarder wasn't having any of it. He didn't want it.
I know. Yeah, the fact that you guys have had the gold hoarder in the background for a lot of those, and the little things that you'll stick a controller in his hand sometimes, or just the little things that you do are so great. I love kind of scouring the videos for little stuff like that. Any plans to get John bigger shirts? Bigger shirts.
John just won't have it. He insists on having the smallest shirt available. And if the more see through, the better. So
all depends on the lighting. One of these days, I want to see like the return of Antonio, John, there can be a rematch.
That was I remember, because I was sitting behind the close-up camera for that stream, and you can actually hear me just like, I couldn't hold it in. I was just like laughing my head off, because it's just so satisfying. I've known John for a very long time. We went to high school together, and so satisfying to just see him trying not to react to that. And it was just amazing. And then it wasn't I just love that moment so much. I watched it over and over and over, like just that like moment of, and the best part about that entire bit is Joe's face turning and realizing, like, it's incredible. Like,
It's almost like he didn't know what to do at that moment. He's like, do we stop? Do we keep going? Do we ask for like I could see the gears turning in his head. Like, is this going to go to HR? How do we get the handler over here without bringing her on? Like, it's just, it was so perfect. It was such an amazing stream. So it's things like that I love looking forward to with the team. Because I know we talked a little bit about it kind of humanizing people, but I do love being able to kind of hang out with the studio, even if it's just me sitting in my room watching a monitor in California when you guys have been working months for who knows how hard or how many hours to try and put together this moment just for the satisfaction of like having people see it and be really happy to kind of see what's coming down the pike. And it's just like getting to see you guys, getting to know your names, getting to talk with you and stuff is such a joy for me. And it was just such a, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's a really important part of kind of what we're wanting to do with video as well is to let people see different members of the team as well. Like obviously Joe and Mike are there all the time, and it's great because they are the best spokespeople for the game, because like Mike is the most passionate person you'll ever meet.
Really is.
Having the opportunity, like through things like deep dives or whatever, to let other people who wouldn't normally be on camera come out and speak about the work that they've done, because that's the thing, there's so many people on the team, and day in day out they're doing so much amazing work, and it's really hard to figure out exactly, well, because obviously you're trying to do things to a bit of a marketing plan, so it's like you go, all right, okay, well, you need to put it out then, but it's like I would love to be able to show more of what we're doing more often, because there are so many people that are doing incredible things, and there are so many incredible people at the studio in general, all very funny people, all very great to speak to. So it's like, it's just being able to get a chance to get them on camera and let the rest of the world see them as well, and see how great the work they're doing is.
I've been loving the opportunity to see like Chris and Becky and Hannah, and just kind of like some of the people that I've been following on Twitter for a long time, and getting to see them kind of speak to what they've been working on, and it's one of those moments where like you guys have some of the best parties I've ever seen a studio throw. And you get to see some of the big video or the big photos of like the whole team and whatnot, but getting them kind of one-on-one with the camera to speak to the stuff that they're working on, it's like a nice acknowledgement. It's not like an award for like Robin, if Robin gets recognized for a really good award or anything, but it's like they get their 15 minutes to kind of sit down and chat about what they're passionate about, because they're obviously doing this for a job, but I don't think anyone works at Rare and thinks like, oh, this is just a 9 to 5 for me. I think everyone at Rare generally does love being at the studio. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it's such like I feel privileged every day, like to be able to do what I'm doing at where I'm doing it. Like like I said, one of the biggest Rare fans ever. I remember, like, just to go back to that, just to touch on this, I remember I was a bigger Rare fan back then, and to the point where I was that person. I don't know if you'll ever remember. But Rare before had like Scribes and Uncle Tusk, which was it was just Lee running the community department back then. Like, so it was like a kind of, you'd send an email into him and he'd reply back in character, essentially. And I would often send in emails, and I remember, I think it was pretty much just a few months after I joined, he dug out one of the old emails, and I was like, oh no, God. It's like me as a kind of young teenager sending in garbage to him. Like it's just crazy. Like, so I mean, I feel so happy that I've ended up at a studio where I would have never dreamed, couldn't have imagined actually getting the opportunity to work there when I was younger, being such a big fan. It's incredible. That's it's funny too, because I'm with you in that. Like I
I knew Rare by the games, but not by the studio. And it wasn't until much later. It was probably, I want to say like GoldenEye and Conquer were like the two that, like I knew Rare's logo from like Donkey Kong Country and stuff, but it didn't click. And then eventually it clicked, and I was like, oh, this studio has been making most of the stuff that I've been playing as a kid. Yeah, them and like Blizzard are like the two main studios. And now being so connected to the studio nowadays, especially after Craig came in and really kind of took the studio into a much brighter light. Yeah. Like I cannot wait to find out like what's going on in the future, not only with Sea of Thieves, but with Everwild too. Like I can't wait to find out when Everwild is ready for its moment and to get to see like what that's going to become and see what that team has been working on this whole time. Cause there's a magic with the team, I think, right now at that studio. And it doesn't get nearly as much attention as I want it to. Which in part is also why I do the podcast too, because I just want to talk about the games that you guys are making right now. But I'm looking forward to the point where people have more than just the, oh, I wish Rare was going to make another Banjo, or oh, I wish Rare was going to make another Conquer. It's like, no, you guys have been missing so much cool stuff that they've been doing. Like if you love that feeling of those games, like outside of the fact that they're just not, Sea of Thieves isn't a dyed in the wool collectathon platformer. It is the best content that you guys have been putting out, and you and like Joseph and John have been showcasing it so well over the last 5 years for sure.
I mean, it's been an absolute joy to do it. You're absolutely right. The studio is in it's in the best position it's ever been in. I'm getting there's so much about the studio that is getting better. I think we're genuinely, the work we're doing, I think back as a Rare fan, looking at all the different games that Rare's made, it's like the talent is insane at the studio at the moment. And it's still got the great, that's the one thing that I, as a Rare fan, that I was always keen on, that it still had the Rare DNA in everything that we did, whether that was the little bits of humor in the videos, or whether that's, the humor in the game, all that sort of stuff. Just looking at the community team, they're like the perfect example of what I think that Rare voice is. For me, Lee is I might be considered the voice of Sea of Thieves, but I think Lee's the voice of Rare. And yeah, that sort of slightly sarcastic British humor is ingrained in what Rare is. But yeah, Rare's also just been about that quality and that talent, and I think that's still there as well.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it's, you guys have shepherded the idea of what Rare is really, really well. And it comes through every time I get a chance to consume more of the content that you guys put out. I think that I hate keeping you on your Sunday and stuff, but let's keep going. Let's keep going. All right. Yeah. Well, I got to ask, because this was something that it was asked of me, and I know the answer to this, but if I don't ask it, then I can't officially tell them that they're wrong. But the community members want to know if Duke is actually Duke, because when you guys transitioned into doing more cinematic stuff, when Duke was ousted as the head leader of the Bilge Rats, and Lorena came in, he gained a voice, but his voice changed.
Yeah.
I know that was because we had a shift from internal to external as far as the voice acting goes, but hearing it from the horse's mouth would really do wonders for people believing that Duke is actually Duke.
Yeah, Duke is still Duke. Yes, we changed his voice actor because of the plans that we have from, obviously, that started in A Pirate's Life, and are going to evolve as we go through this year's adventures.
which I'm looking forward to that too. There's so many characters that you guys have kind of in the wings, as it were, who haven't been center stage, that I'm looking forward to eventually making their return or their debut. And I think that, so I'm kind of curious with kind of the adventures and stuff and the VO works that you're doing. Is it have you guys thought about going back and bringing out some of the characters? Because that the reason I bring the Duke voice in is because that was a big shock. And same thing happened with the Ferryman. The Ferryman was going to have a much larger role in the world, and the Ferryman's voice changed before Duke's voice changed.
Yes.
So do you, because there's some characters, and I'll grab Shelley Presking or Shelley's, I can't remember. It is just Shelley, the shipwright.
Shelley the shipwright. Yeah.
Her voice is, and also over on, well, it was Golden Sands now. I guess she's gone there, huh? With her screaming. There's certain characters that have a voice now that I know are part of the game, and I always wondered, like, do you guys ever worry about erasing some of the history of the game by bringing in a new voice actor?
It's an interesting one, because there is something to be said of like, that's, for some people, that's that character, that's their voice, and us suddenly switching it can sort of almost knock the immersion or knock their attachment to it slightly. I think ultimately, if there's a character that we think we're gonna, or that we know we're gonna have speaking a lot, it's going to ultimately be better in the long run if we have an actor doing it rather than a member of the dev team, because ultimately you want to, like, part of what we're trying to do with the stories and that is we're trying to tell a story, and we don't want something to take you out of that. And if the voice isn't quite right for the dramatic performance that they need to deliver, I think the right decision is to go and replace that voice with a proper actor. I do think it's an interesting one. We with Duke, like, obviously it was quite different to, so it was Valentine that was doing the voice for Duke before. Valentine's one of the tech artists and on the team, and so we've replaced him with an actor called, is it Robbie Stevens that does Duke now? I think so. And we said, you're not going to be able to replicate Valentine's voice, and also we don't want you to, but if you get a flavor of that character in, so the kind of, when Valentine was, it was kind of like, oh, I am welcome, and it was kind of, he was a bit kind of almost like, he was kind of drunk almost, and like just a bit flamboyant. So we said, take the flamboyance, like, and then like use that to inform the voice you want to do for this character. And I think that's fine as long as there's a bit of the DNA of what made that character's voice their voice in there with the new actor, then I think it's okay. I am aware that it can be a little bit jarring for people, like, that's not Duke's voice, like but people won't be saying that after they hear what we've got planned from later on. Once you hear Robbie doing a bit more dramatic stuff later down the line, then you'll be like, oh no, that's the Duke that we know and love.
I don't know if I agree with the love. I've always distrusted him. It's always just he's always been that guy that he's a
mysterious character, isn't he?
Yeah. Every time he has us do something, and it really did start. You guys kind of started him down a path that I could not follow. So, but I'm glad that he has turned into the character that he is, because I think that's a move that you guys saw an opportunity with, and I think you've played your hand really well. Because for 99% of the Sea Thieves fans out there that absolutely love Duke, it's fun to see that turn, and then to have that investment, only to kind of sit there and wait and like be okay. Well, what's going to happen down the line? It'll be interesting to see where it goes. And with future, I mean, I'm kind of curious because you guys do such a good job of building in these little teases and stuff into the videos, are there things that, like, I kind of want to get into this, so if you don't want to, we won't have to, but I want to bring up the structure at the end of the dock at Sanctuary Outpost that was in the latest music video. Ooh. Not to ask what it is, because right. I don't want to know before it's ready. But with stuff like that, I always worry, because I think of James Thomas and what he must have, what happened to the poor man the 2 times that he let slip things on stream. And it's I always wonder, like, do you, like, what happens when something like that happens with the videos that come out when something slips? Because this was just the most recent example. I remember there was a video that came out where there was a pan in on one of the galleons. You guys were showcasing the cosmetics for it, but you hadn't announced Canon cosmetics or Capstan cosmetics yet. And we got to see, I believe it was the what was it? The cannons for the cursed, or no, what was now I'm blanking on it. The Bone Crusher cannons. All right. Yeah. And stuff like that. So when, as a video producer, like, how do you deal with stuff like that when it does happen? And are there, what kind of checks and balances do you have to start building into the future for future videos?
It's a really tricky one. So, and it's a bit of insight in terms of how we actually go and capture the footage for these trailers. We use a build which pretty much has everything that's been submitted, that's, like, finished, being submitted to the mainline version of the build. It's there just behind certain toggles. So we've got to be very careful about so it's a tricky one. So basically you need to know what's happening in terms of live production, in sense of what's the next thing going out in the next update. And if you've got to know, is this thing in the next update, or is it in the update after that, or is it literally like 6 months away? And that is tricky, because keeping up to date with everything that's happening, because everything's happening in tandem at the same time. So knowing what's actually going out in March as opposed to what's going out in April can sometimes be hard to keep up with. But in general, it's just we have to rely on a review process. So we pass the videos to different producers across the different teams that are working on Sea Thieves, and that'll get a kind of a look over from those different teams. And as long as they're happy with what's included in the thing, that they haven't spotted anything, that's about as good as we can do. And that's why occasionally a few things will sneak through, because it's like, people sometimes, you're, for example, in the music video, you're kind of looking at the man playing his instrument with his dog beside him, but then you're like, oh, there's something in the background. So when things like that happen, it's annoying, and especially it's annoying as well if it's work that isn't finished, in the sense that you never want to show like somebody's work when they're like, I'm not ready for it to be shown yet. So that's actually quite upsetting for them sometimes, and it can be annoying for us, because we're never intentionally trying to ruin somebody's day. But occasionally there are things that are in there that are genuine teases that we go, well, let's intentionally put this in the background. But yeah, balancing that is a tricky one from a production standpoint, just because the game moves so quickly and there's so much being worked on at the same time. Especially now we've moved back to sort of move to adventures, and we've got this monthly cadence. It's like, oh, right, okay, you got to be really, really on it for seeing what's going on in the background of your stuff. Like, because for example, this is totally fine because it's an adventure that's already out. But we were capturing the other day, and I was at the Sea Dogs Tavern, and in the background you can see Shipwreck Bay, and I was like, oh, in the background that means I can see the sort of, I don't want to spoil too many stories for people who haven't played Shredded Islands yet, but there's stuff at Shipwreck Bay that you can see, and I was like, right, okay, so if that had been something for Adventure 2, then that would have been an issue.
Yeah.
So yeah, you've basically just got to scan the frame as you're capturing, going like, is there anything in this that we don't want to be in there? And it's really tricky with cosmetics as well, because there are so many cosmetics, so many different sets. You've really got to be on it, knowing what has and hasn't been released yet. That's got to be a hard line to straddle, just from the idea of wanting to showcase like stuff that's coming up. Whereas you could very well just very easily kind of sit back and rely on, okay, we're only going to pull cosmetics from launch, and that way you'd never have to worry about accidentally letting something slip through. But having to like sit there and be like, okay, well, did we get the purple and gold Admiral set out? Is that something that's out now, or was that something that we were going to promise to the would-be pirate? Like, there's so much to have to play around with that. And so that's why I was always kind of curious, like, when does intent versus kind of slip happen with a lot of those videos? Because I don't think anyone ever expects what maybe they do. Maybe I'm kind of speaking too broadly, or I'm projecting on this. But I never expect when something like this happens in a video to be something that is like set in stone. That is for sure going to be a thing that is definitely going to be in the game. Shrouded Ghost, case in point. So when I see things like, things in the background for videos, I'm like, okay, well, there's something that they're doing. Like we've seen, oh gosh, what was it? There was a toggle that went in where you could see the reflection of the Castaways camp before it was in the game. And that was and it was like, who in their right mind would think any normal day that they would have to think about like that being a toggle that went into the live game? But it's like, of course, you're using screen space reflections. Like you're going to have that model mirrored on the water. And it was such a weird thing, because no one even then, we still didn't even, like, as a fan, we didn't know what the heck it was. We just kind of knew it was a blob. So I really feel for the team when it comes to stuff like that, because it's got to be like how much are they going to work out, and how bad is it going to spoil the work of someone else? Yeah, it's Sea of Thieves is a vast game as well. Like, so even things like, audio triggering, like, and stuff like that. Like, thankfully, that's generally not something we have to worry too much about, because we do audio post on all the videos. Like, but in the game itself, you're like, what is that noise in random points of the world? And then you go, oh gosh, that's something for next month that's suddenly triggering early. Like, and little things like that. Like, but I guess it's because the game is, like I said, it's so vast. You've got so many different islands that stuff could potentially be happening on. It takes a lot of, and the test team do an incredible job. Like, that is one, honestly, of all the people that I get to work. I'm very lucky. I get to work with pretty much I get to touch in with every different team across all of the game. Whether that's like animators or VFX artists or audio, all that sort of stuff. The testers, like, they are incredible at what they do. Like, they're genuinely something like, and they're also usually, if I'm wanting to find out something about the game, like, how does this work in the game, they're the best people to ask as well. Like, honestly, like, I can't imagine a world without that team there to support us, because they are incredible. But they've got such a enormous job to do, like testing Sea of Thieves. It's kind of incredible that they actually manage to do it every month. And I think that's something that I think would be kind of I wanted to kind of pull that out to kind of speak on, because if people don't know, QA testers, for the most part, like, a lot of stuff comes to games and it happens as a bug, and you're like, well, how could this get, how could this be affected? It's like, from a QA perspective, a lot of the QA people have to, and forgive me if I'm boring you, but I know you know this, but I wanted to kind of touch on this. When people are QAing games, they are given a list of things that they need to check for, and then they check those things, and then check those things against the regular stuff that they would have to do. And once that's done, they have to check it off and then send it back. And then the revision process will kind of go on from there. So, like, having
having the opportunity or the sheer amount of time to try and test every single test case compared to say a Sea Thieves partner who is going to be playing the game for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week as their job, and having that stuff showcased on screen with other people. Like there's just so many more people out there playing the game on stream than the amount of people you could possibly hire for a QA team to be able to act on all of that QA that comes in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I definitely feel for the QA team. They are always kind of an unsung heroes when it comes to game development, and hardly ever held up as high as, like, you know, game designers or narrative designers and stuff. And they really are the ones that are trying to make sure that the game goes out in the best way. So I
absolutely. Yeah.
Give them a couple minutes to kind of talk to them at least. So to kind of, I have so many questions. I don't want to, I really do feel like I want to keep your time precious for this.
Don't worry, my wife's still asleep in the bedroom, so we've got time yet. Like she'll be lying in. It's a Sunday, so she's all good. I've got nowhere else to be, so you've got me.
So I wanted to touch on as far as the, like, advertising for Sea Thieves. You mentioned that you got to talk to all of the different teams. One that I have to point out to see if this is something that is going to be worked on in the future is Adam and Pete over with the team. I know that they recently talked about in one of the past podcasts that they have deals in the works for stuff with Sea Thieves, and we've seen that as far as, like, you know, the Monopoly and the tabletop RPG, things like that. In the future, I would imagine that as product deals get done, if they do work out, is that something that you are looking to talk with them about to try and get videos and stuff like that? Because I feel like there's a lot of stuff that comes to the Sea Thieves store, and I see people talking about it. Like, we had the community day shirts. A lot of people have been picking up the Ashen keys and stuff. Any plans to try and showcase the store better for people to kind of see some of the stuff that they can physically buy in?
Yeah, it's an interesting point. Like, because we don't often. In fact, we have very rarely shown off stuff that comes to the store. I think to be honest, the best place for us to do that now is somewhere like Sea Thieves News, because we did have, you know, we sometimes talk about cross brand promotions within Sea Thieves News. Like, we talked about the Madrina's coffee bundle on the last episode. I think there's definitely, if there was something new coming to the store that we thought was worth shouting about, we could do it within Sea Thieves News. It's an interesting one because it's a tricky balance, because I think people come to watch those videos for different reasons. And, you know, I know, just reading the comments, some people get annoyed even if we mention the Pirate Emporium rather than just new free content coming to the game. So it's like, if we start, you know, we'd have to wait, like, get the balance right of how much we show that sort of stuff within those videos as well. Okay.
Yeah, that kind of brings me to the Pirate Emporium question that I was thinking about diving into. The monetization for the game is such that it is as fair and balanced as I think you can ask a game to be in a world where, you know, given that most people will spend the base cost of the game and expect to get that game. If this was, say, like Uncharted 2, most people would buy that game, or I guess we'll take Horizon Forbidden West as a more recent example. We'll take that and say, like, okay, well, that is a single player narrative game. There's no promise of expanded content, so you're paying up the full price or the full price of the game now. With a live service game, other games, we've had things like loot boxes, we've had things with you know, microtransactions and things like that. Do you feel like when you're making videos to kind of showcase some of the new content coming to the Pirate Emporium, that is directly tied to your paycheck? For lack of a better phrase, you know, the more money that gets spent on the Emporium directly funds what the studio does, because it's essentially putting money in Microsoft's pocket, which, you know, goes to your guys' thing. So I love the Emporium for what it offers because I think it is the most fair. But you mentioned having people get kind of turned off by that, and I think it deals more with the microtransactions more than the content that's actually coming to the game. How have you guys ever had comments when you put out videos like that this stuff isn't what they want, or like how do you deal with that kind of feedback when you're trying to make something that is trying to drive forward the continuation of the game?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Obviously, you're absolutely right that the Pirate Emporium content is important in terms of continuing Sea of Thieves as a live service. We think, as you sort of described, I think it is a pretty fair way of doing it. Like, there's nothing about the game in terms of, you know, your enjoyment out of it that is locked behind something that we've put in the Pirate Emporium. So this is very much a sort of completely optional, you know, you almost like form of expression is, I guess, the best way to describe what we're putting in there. It's an interesting balance that we have to strike in the videos, in the sense that it would be wrong to not show that content because, well, one, people on the team have actually worked really, really hard on making it look cool. So, and it does look cool. So yes, we should definitely show that. I think the balance has always got to be, and it's why you'll have noticed we actually stopped. We didn't do a separate Pirate Emporium video in January, and just folded it into Sea of Thieves news. That's going to be the sort of way we're doing it going forward. I think where we were going wrong as a video team was we were almost sort of positioning those Pirate Emporium updates, and they felt like, it almost felt like they were updates to the game in the same way that, you know, a season update would look like an update to the game. And I think that was our mistake in terms of just how we're positioning it. Like, people, that's the thing, I think most people generally agree with you in the sense that they think the Pirate Emporium content is fair, and it's like they know it's an optional thing they can choose to go and get if they want. But I think if we are, it's about how we as a marketing team sort of promote it. So I think we've just got to get that balance right, and I think putting it as alongside other content that people will be able to go in and play for free is definitely important. It's sort of more just like awareness. It's like you don't want to just say this is the only thing in this video. I think that's the key. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's like the Pirate Emporium is important to what Sea of Thieves does as a continuing live service and as a business. So we do have to obviously acknowledge it, and I think we've done it in the fairest and coolest way that we can. Like, I genuinely believe some of the stuff in there is awesome looking, and it's not like it's the only awesome looking stuff in the game either. We have plenty that you can earn for free through commendations or earn as part of the season progression that also looks incredible as well.
Yeah, I mean, it, like, just in the small adventure that we got this latest update, I love the compass that we got as a result of that. And I didn't that was just part of the game, and it was part of the story, and I have I now have a memory associated with that. But at the same time, I can't let go of the Crimson Crypt set. It's the most beautiful set that is in the game. It speaks to me at a deep teenage level. So I do see why you guys would want to kind of keep the Emporium stuff with Sea Thieves news, because it may not necessarily be a new update as far as like content that's coming to the base game that would further on the story or add new mechanics. But I did like having kind of the breakout of those. But I understand, like, having the Emporium stuff wrapped up into the Sea of Thieves news does kind of keep it a little more concise as far as like if you guys wanted to, because I mean, you guys are going to be dropping those gameplay trailers for the adventures and stuff. So there's a lot of content that'll be dropping, and I can understand the desire to not want to fatigue people with too much, especially given that you guys are doing like the music videos and stuff, which are great, and the announcement trailers and stuff. Any plans to kind of do more stuff like the what was it, the Becalmed? I think it was Becalmed. We did the lo-fi remix. That was really cool. And I was wondering, like, because it came out of nowhere. I wasn't expecting it at all. But any plans to do kind of like where do you want to see like kind of little pet projects for making videos for Sea Thieves?
Well, just on that lo-fi project, that's one to definitely ask Admin Pete about, because I think I'm pretty sure they were responsible for however that came about.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Like the music videos are a nice little kind of break for us to go do something that isn't just, me talking over a video. And obviously it's always amazing when we get to hear whatever Chloe or Robin have done. But yeah, it's an interesting one. It's not like we've got, so now we've got the sort of gameplay trailers for Adventures. We've got the cinematic trailers for Adventures. We've got Sea Thieves news. We've got the podcast. And then when a season comes out, we've got obviously season updates. We've got the deep dive. So like as a video team, we're sort of busier than we've ever been. But I think as we go through this year, like I say, I think that the bit that I would be keen to try and go back to is sort of what you were talking about with inside stories and behind the scenes, a little bit more of that sort of stuff where possible. There's always going to be stuff where it's just not the time to look at a particular feature or whatever. But I think there's some stuff that's happening in the next couple of seasons that would be worth having a look at. It's a tricky one to balance, because it's like you've got to get that moment of surprise and delight correct as well. So it's about not playing your hand too early, and also not underselling how cool a feature is. So it's sort of like, I don't know whether for every feature a behind the scenes or an inside story isn't always the best way to debut it, for example. I think some of these things are maybe like ancillary sort of additions after we've maybe announced something. But yeah, it's, for example, like, I mean, I would love to do deep dives on something like the animation, because I know that, like I said, I know the animation team have really pushed what they are doing for Adventures. So there's stuff in their workflow now, in their process, that's different to what they've been doing for the last 4 years on the game. So there's stuff there that I think would be really interesting. It's maybe not for everyone, like, but for me it's really interesting, and I think there's a part of our audience on our social channels that would be interested in seeing how that stuff is made as well.
Oh, 100%. 100%. I definitely, I agree. I think that the animation team, just with the stuff with Belle now, in interacting with her, it's, and Lorena too. I know, jokes aside about her shouting, it was a moment where I was just kind of running around, and I got up and I did my normal thing in the tavern where you wake up and you start grabbing stuff out of barrels, and I ran out and she shouted at me, and I was like, I literally stopped dead in my tracks, and I was like, what? Did you just say something to me? You know me. You said hello. It's like getting noticed by someone that you've admired for so long, and they're like, oh yeah, you're that kid in that class that's and you're like, and it was such a cool moment. So I would love to hear from the animation team to kind of talk about their desires for that. God, if you guys could start recording some of them, the voiceover things.
Well, that's a really interesting one. There's a few reasons why. There's a couple. Sometimes we can't record some of the voiceovers. Some of them we do, but contractually we're not allowed to show them in certain contexts. So gotcha. It's a tricky one with that. However, I know that the animators, obviously, when they're you saw a little bit of this in the Pirate's Life showcase video. They film everything they're doing as reference, so they've got loads of stuff of them acting out different characters and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that'd be great to be able to sort of show some of that later down the line. Yeah,
that's always kind of been the the caveat I think to a lot of this content is I understand that if it's something that you guys are working on for 6 months down the line, that not only is it going to be 6 months before that content's out, but I'm also okay waiting a few months after, or, you know, whatever would be the most optimal time to kind of dive into it, to kind of be like, hey, you remember that thing that you did back in the day? Well, here's a little breakdown of what it was like to kind of make that moment. And just kind of I think like there was never a video for this, and it's kind of tucked away in the world, but there was the stuff that was going on with Glitterbeard that it was like I would have loved to have had a whole video kind of breaking down and talking about like who he was, why he was so important, and kind of just having the little bit of teases to set people off on the adventure. And kind of be like, you may have noticed this and you may not understand the context of it, but hopefully you realize that there is a whole thing involved with that. And it's things like that I think videos have an opportunity to use as a tool in trying to share some of the really cool stuff that I think the team has done, that while it was really cool in the moment that it came out, it hasn't had the attention that sometimes stuff like that should have the attention for, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know what you're saying there. I think in general, like, yeah, that's a fair point. The Glitterbeard and like that voyage was an interesting one in the sense that obviously, yeah, it was something that I don't think would have been right for us to sort of, it's a tricky one, because when we make a video, it's ultimately it's a promotional tool, no matter whether it's a look back at how we made something with like the actual the behind the scenes sort of aspect, or it's like, and yeah, for me, like that, I don't think that would have been right for that voyage. That voyage obviously meant so much to everyone in the studio, that I think just being in the world organically and letting people discover it on their own is kind of that was the entire point of that. I mean, I agree that, again, it's an amazing voyage, and it's got a lovely, like, obviously beautiful moments in it. And you're right. I mean, obviously people did that work. It'd be great to show that in some sort of capacity, but I think for that one, it's just hard. It's hard for us to detach the fact that no matter what video we make, it's always still a bit of a promotional tool.
That's a really fair point. I really hadn't considered that, because, you know, when I see videos come from Rare, it's more of the world that I live in. And for me, it's more of having recognition of the stuff that I'm enjoying in the life that I live, where I spend my time on the seas and stuff like that with the people that I spend time with. So to me, everything that comes out, I don't really think of it as promotional stuff, but you are right. I always see it as a celebration and not a promotion. Which is, I guess, kind of, you know, my own preference there, but you do bring up a really solid point.
I mean, that is you're right. That is the spirit behind it. Like, we're not cynically going, and this is how we will sell this next thing. It's like we're genuinely trying to celebrate this stuff that we're all so passionate about. But I think that the sort of reality that you've got to kind of step back and look at is like, oh, well, yeah, but ultimately it might mean that somebody downloads the game on Game Pass or whatever. Like, so it's I think, yeah, for that one, it was just that I don't think we would have left it just as this organic thing for people to discover in the game. Yeah.
I guess it's up to folks like myself then to bring it up and try and pass on that intrigue and tell people, like, if you don't know, you should, and if you need help, let me know, because I think that's one of the things that, especially with that voyage in particular, getting the necessary requirements for it can be tough, especially if you've only got like a couple people that you know. And having communities help kind of facilitate that, I think, helps give people the opportunity to experience something that is probably one of not gonna lie, one of the best things I've ever seen in a video game, and that's it. It's hands down one of the most emotional things I've had. So, and the only reason I bring it up is because it's getting close to the anniversary of it, and it kind of like it's in the back of my mind the more it comes up, and I'm going to be talking probably more about like how people can get into that and kind of trying to showcase that a little bit more.
And I think that's absolutely fine. I think, you know, in the sense that I actually find it amazing when I do see videos or screenshots of people maybe doing like the last part of it. And that's great because that is a genuine celebration. That's what we wanted to happen. We wanted players to discover it and have this incredible moment, like following the story of Glitterbeard. I think, and that's how that it should live its life. Like, and it's totally fine for people to explain how you go and do it, like the nuts and bolts of you need this many players, etc. Like that's fine because again, it's about players saying all that. It's about players discovering that and sharing their story, their experience from it. I think, like I said, I think us doing that is different, but I'm totally happy for and love that people get to like yourself get to show it online.
100% respect that. That's a very valid perspective that I didn't think about until now. And I talked a little bit with another dev about that recently, who was very kind to me about why they were going to kind of not kind of pursue that same track of, and it makes 100% sense now, coming from that perspective. So to kind of talk a little bit about the just kind of like community in general, from coming at from your perspective, we were just talking about Glitterbeard and how great of an experience that is for communities and stuff. Where do you see like content from the community that excites you? And I kind of think of like as a video producer, like coming from a background of World of Warcraft, I'm used to a lot of people diving into the game and making machinima out of it. Same thing with like Halo with red versus blue. Do you guys get inspired by seeing some of the community content for some of the cinematics and stuff that they're putting out?
Absolutely. Like there was, I can't remember who posted it, unfortunately, but there was one I saw just like last week that I was like, ooh, I did like it on Twitter, like, but it was, I can't remember what it was, but it was just like I was going, oh god, I actually was going, how have they done this? But then I was remembering back to how we did things before we had the cinematic camera, and it's like they just have a ton of patience. Like even watching things like I watched Spammels recreating the 2015 trailer and seeing how difficult it was when you don't even have, because we had it obviously at least some basic controls, like, you know, freeze time of day for example. That in itself would have just sped that up massively. So I have massive admiration for anyone trying to make cinematics in Sea of Thieves, which is, you know, incredibly difficult because it's a living, breathing world with players who will come in and annoy you, and skellies who will pop up with an explosive barrel randomly. So it's amazing, and genuinely is inspiring in the sense that I see a lot of people trying to tell new stories as well. Obviously, we had people like Ghost Admiral trying to do they had the Christmas Carol one, and I see a bunch of stuff like that. And that's really cool. Like, but what about you? Yeah, what examples have you got? That
the Elgato one was one that just spoke to my heart, about Elgato, who was just kind of hanging out around at the Sea Dog Tavern in the middle of the Spire, and he kind of found himself like stowed away on a sloop, and he was just kind of running around, and it was so like so innocent. In a game where you have so much that can really kind of like, you can get some sweaty pirates on the seas, and to have stories like Elgato kind of pop up and just tell a little, there was nothing major about it. It was just a cute little story. So I see things like that, and I keep thinking, if there will ever be a time where that will be something that the community will have more access to the tools that you get to have in there. Because I know we have like private servers and stuff, but I always wonder, like, do you want that for the community, or is that something that is tough to speak to?
I would love it. Like, it would be amazing to be able to expose some of the tools that we use in our builds, and I think you're right. The right place for that would be within something like private servers. I know that, speaking to the people who know more about the tech than I do, that it's actually an incredible challenge for them to do at this point. I think, that being said, there's probably a way to expose some of what we use, not all for sure, like, but there's probably a way. It's got to also be exposed in a way that's kind of user friendly. Ours is very like, I mean, when we are doing it, there's a bit of command line and there's a bit of debug stuff, and it's all a bit kind of it's not stuff that the average player would be, even if they saw it, they'd be like, no, I'm not interested. So I think there'd be some work to do to even take some of the most basic stuff, like I say, like being able to fly around like as a camera, like that in itself. We have to make sure there's a lot of, even if we're doing it in private servers, there's a lot of stuff that obviously would affect the game all up. Because even there'd be stuff in the world that suddenly you would be able to get a viewpoint on that you're not meant to get a viewpoint on. So it'd be a tricky thing to balance, but I think it would be incredible because, going back to Halo, back in Halo 3, I used to use like replays, and we'd go and capture little clips and make little cinematics of our multiplayer games. So I know cool. I know how powerful it can be and how cool it can be to sort of see a moment that you were, it was your moment, it was something you were a part of, to be able to then go and show that off in a slightly more cinematic way. It would be amazing. It's not something that I think you're going to see soon, but I know there's a bit of discussion around private servers and what else we can do with private servers, beyond obviously just giving a space for people to set up things like their own events or whatever. I'm hoping that's a track that will kind of be expanded upon in the future, because it's, at least from my perspective, where I don't have access to them, but it's something like, if it were added as an example, like another revenue stream for the studio, like being able to pay for a custom server, that is an easy expense for me to justify, just for the sake of having my own community to be able to foster lessons to learn with like a Sherpa program, or just having general kind of hangouts. And even if it's not something that directly translates to the live game, as far as commendations or achievements or gold or any of that, just having a way to share an experience in a world where it's a little more catered has always been something that I think, like, there's a moment of storytelling that could really be fostered with things like cinematics and things like that, being able to plan all that. I still can't believe that some of the people that are able to do some of the stuff that you guys do on a regular basis are doing this in a live world, if they aren't using private servers. Yeah, it's crazy. It's like I say, a massive admiration for what they're doing, in the sense that, like, they have the ultimate patience. Like I would love to see something happen around that, but nothing to, like I say, nothing to really announce now. But yeah, absolutely, having better ways for people to showcase the game on social media is always a good thing. If there's someone else out there making great trailers for Sea Thieves, I'd be very happy. Like, do you like the fact that that the emotes are kind of been, because I think this was something that was kind of with a lot of the folks that came over from Lionhead, like a lot of the emote wheel and stuff is pulled from a previous game. I think it was, I don't think it was Fable. I can't remember what game it was, but
remember seeing one of Lionhead Studios games, and they had like an emote wheel, and it looked almost on par with what we have in Sea of Thieves. Do you guys, like, how do you guys go about using the emotes and stuff when you're trying to build out the videos? Like, is that you all kind of hanging out and trying to capture footage on your own doing it, or do you guys, are you able to do scripts and stuff to time that out? Because I know back in the day you had to time that stuff out if you wanted to get stuff done at the same time, but nowadays it feels...
Yeah, I wish again that we had something as nice as being able to say, and at 0.5 seconds this emote will trigger. No, it's still literally, if there's a player on screen that does something that isn't just a looping emote, that's a person playing the game, like, and me going, right, okay, and 3, 2, 1, go, and then like, yeah. So it's we're still at that. So. That's so crazy. That's so amazing that you guys are still able to, that's the way you guys have to go about doing it, because it really does speak to just how much effort goes into just the couple minutes of a video that you guys are walking around, and then the camera pans out from the bow of a galleon where people are like fishing and sailing, and then next thing you know there's a couple people like doing emotes on a dock, and there's a lot going on with the videos have gotten so much more complex. So it's really amazing to see that you guys have been doing that for so long, and it's still kind of done the same way. I mean, and that sort of like it kind of speaks to the potential that Sea of Thieves has as a sort of machinima vehicle. Like you can definitely, I mean, some of our the camera movements don't have to be particularly fancy. Like I said, you could go back to how we used to do it and just walk really slowly, like change your FOV if you want to change your focal length, like all that sort of stuff.
I used to do that when I was trying to get a good photo of something, if I or back in the day before we had the accessibility to change the color of the X's. Whenever I was playing, if I couldn't quite tell on Paradise Valley like where that X was, I would just go in and tweak the focal length, the FOV, and get a little bit closer to that map.
So yeah, like I think we still do things in a very sort of machinima style way, like which can, it's like the game, I think, well, just to be completely clear, obviously there are obviously ways that we could do this non-machinima, but it's almost the byproduct of, like I was saying earlier on about part of the sort of initial brief around how we wanted to show the game was to be very authentic, which meant we did a lot of, well, everything was just like, we use the game, we just play the game, and then if the game looks good, it looks good. That's sort of stuck with us, and we all, a lot of the video team now just has this sort of inbuilt sort of we know, like our thumbs now know how to move very slowly on the thumbstick. But yeah, I think it would be interesting to, and like, sorry, I was going to say, there would be other ways to do it, obviously, because obviously the game's made in Unreal, so we could do things like use an Unreal sequencer to sort of play things out. But it also just doesn't. You've got to be careful with stuff like that, because obviously when you're doing things in sequencer in the editor, it's like you've got, again, you're trying to make sure it represents the game exactly as it is. And so I think that it's nicer to have that distinction between cinematics maybe having a bit more spit and polish put on them, extra lights, etc. I think it's always, it genuinely is, I think, quite important to make sure that when we're showing something as an update to the game, that it represents the game as close as we can. And machinima is just the perfect way to do that.
Yeah, you guys really kill it. I mean, like if you watch, I mean, if anyone listening is going through the videos and watching what you guys do, aside from the pans that you do, like pulling out from a close up of a couple pirates to pull into a different scene where it's all of the pirates, like all of that stuff outside of the camera action itself, everything that everyone's doing is all stuff that you can do in game, which is insane when I think about like trying to grab a tribute chest and run out of a vault and have it right at the right moment where the door is going to slam. Like I can't imagine how many takes it must have taken.
God, yeah, you just reminded me of that. Like I'd blocked that away. Yeah, that literally was let's start the vault and then listen for like watch the door going down through its stages and then being like, okay, we run it once and go like, okay, from the door falling down to its last point to slamming closed is what's that? That's 15 seconds, right? Okay, we'd stopwatch it, like, and then be like, how long does it take me to run from here to here? Right, it takes me about 3 seconds. Okay, and then we'd get to that 12-second mark and be like, and go, and then just hope that you just make it through. Like, so many takes where it just slamming in front of the person's face, like, it's I got to do a little bit of that when I was making a video about the Tall Tale Dark Brethren court with Tall Tale, and I had Captain Deadeye Dre with me and Drunken Bear, and we were it was after everything had kind of finished in that scene, and we were just using the room as a set, and the whole goal of it was I just wanted to have a couple pirates who wasn't just me running over to the table to take a look at the table and just kind of showcase it for B-roll. And it was so crazy because it was literally like the exact same thing. It was like I was the camera, I was just going to slowly pan towards the table, and then as I was moving, I was like, okay, 3, 2, 1, start walking, move around. Drunken Bear, come up to the table. Dre, lift up your lantern. And trying to direct these moments was such a fun experience. But I can imagine, like, when you're on a deadline for that video, it can be tough. So I'm kind of curious, how many videos are you always, like, do you have multiple videos that you're working on at different stages of production at one time, or do you generally try to focus on just like one or two? Like, what is your day to day when that comes? There's always a bunch of stuff on the go at the same time. For example, so the cinematic trailers, Save for Adventures, if we take that as an example, the cinematic trailers were already in production on we've got the scripts up to the 5th one. We're in actual production on the 3rd one, in terms of actually capturing stuff and animation, etc. When we're doing content updates or Sea Thieves news, there's actually an overlap all the time, and you've got people like we've got people in the team who are working on, like, say, titles and stuff like that, so they're working on the sort of graphics side of it as well.
Man, if I could get those fonts, man.
So yeah, like, there's always maybe like at least 2 or 3 kind of actively on the go, and then things like, writing trailers, writing VO scripts, stuff like that as well. And then, like, say, we're going to record VO sessions for trailers, etc. There's a lot on. We're always kind of busy, but it's great. It's going to be interesting this year, certainly, because more, like I said, we're doing more than ever. So I think it'll be a fun time for the team. Busy but fun.
So I want to end on this because I'm really curious with a Pirate's Life. I can't recall the studio, but I remember there was a lot of rejoicing going around about some of the work that had been done to kind of make the trailer for A Pirate's Life. And I'm curious, is there another team that you guys usually work with outside of the studio in-house to kind of do work? And then, so what's kind of the workload balance between them and what you guys are working on?
So we only ever, it's the company that we work with, they are a company called Real Time, and they do lots of different game trailers. But we only ever work with them on the cinematics. All the other videos that you see are just handled internally, and then usually we'll be feeding back, we'll be directing, we're obviously laying out the trailer, we edit those trailers, we direct those trailers, but they are the people that actually scale up the team to sort of have animation and all that there, animators and VFX artists on those cinematic trailers ready to go. It's a weird one as well, obviously, because in the sense that it's all done in Unreal still.
So it's actually still completely reliant on the work being done in Rare, in the sense of the character models, the environments, the VFX, all that sort of stuff. It's like, but then we have a team at real time who bring all that together, do the cameras, and sort of bring it to life.
That's amazing. Yeah, the trailers that have Pirate's Life was really just exceptional. Like, it was just such an amazing moment, and I've watched it so many times.
Well, so that was we started that trailer earlier than any other trailer that we've ever made, because we obviously it was such a massive deal, and we knew it was going to be our E3 trailer as well, so it was like, it had to be special, and so that was that. Gosh, like, when did I start that? Actually, we probably would have. So it was obviously debuted in June. I think we started that in October the year before. So yeah, that was a long one for us, because it's not usually as long as that. And
it's like 3 minutes long for that trailer. That's a long lead time for that.
And it's because it's something that you've got, really, there's so many, it was such a big one in terms of getting the message right and getting the feel right. There was variations of it while it was just existed in sort of storyboard and VO form, where it played out differently. And you're going, and it's a tricky one as well, because you're going like, all right, okay, A Pirate's Life was such a varied sort of experience that there was a lot for us to pick and choose from in terms of what are we going to show. So it's then going like, all right, okay, what should we show here? Like, what's the structure? How much do we want to tease that it's, that this is Pirates of the Caribbean, versus coming out and actually saying this is Pirates of the Caribbean? So finding that balance is tricky.
How much control do you have on that? Like, do you get the final say on these videos, or like
that was the amazing thing. Like, I genuinely didn't know what to expect into going into working with Disney, but they gave us so much free reign because I think it was, and a lot of that came from just how amazing the vision that Mike had was, because he had really gave them the confidence that basically this was in the hands of massive fans, people who respected the work, knew the history of the work. Like, Mike obviously was not just a fan of the films, but it was like had insane knowledge about the ride as well.
An unhealthy amount.
Yeah.
He maybe a little therapy involved.
And so they I think they were like, well, you guys have got this, like, you know what you're doing. Again, I remember like the VO sessions for that, because we actually recorded them in a slightly different way that a lot of that was handled in the States. And really? Like, so it'd be Mike and I on Zoom calls at like 1 a.m. in the morning.
Oh man.
And I remember them talking about the script and saying, again, this is one of the best scripts we've been given. Like, so all credit goes to Mike and Chris on that, like, in terms of pulling something off that Disney were incredibly happy with. And that they knew that, again, from that, they knew that we were kind of going to treat the franchise with respect. So again, we didn't have a ton that we had to change on it at all from what we wanted to do. Like, that trailer is essentially what we wanted to make in the first place. So
that's cool. That's really fun. Do you spend a lot of time, your own personal time, kind of working out like storyboards for a lot of the videos? Like, is that or do you have folks that you kind of entrust with that?
I mean, when it comes to storyboards, like, you wouldn't want me to actually draw them. No, certainly not. Because quite often with the cinematic trailers, what I'll do is I'll chat to designers, so chat to Mike and people like Chris Davies and stuff like that, and maybe chat to like some of the writers, like Chris Alcock or Kate, and get an idea of what they're wanting to do in game, and then I'll go away and sort of figure out. I'll write a script for the trailer that sort of, okay, how would I set those events up or whatever, or how would I show off that thing in a really cool way. So I think, and I do think that's important, that you've got to write, when it's something as condensed as a trailer, you've got to write it knowing how you're going to show it off. And that's often, I know that can feel like, obviously you're kind of taking a job away from someone, they're a writer, but it's like when it's sort of short lead times and like I say, a condensed run time, you kind of want to know, I'm going to do, the camera's going to move down here, I'm going to have this person step in here, and so usually once I've written a script, the next step will do a sort of scratch VO sort of with temp music and stuff like that. So it'll be like usually me just doing different voices, and then we'll pass that by Mike and Joe, and if they are like, yeah, that sounds good, there'll be maybe some feedback on the script, etc. But usually we get the structure down pretty early, and then kind of go from there and build it out.
Wow, that's so cool. I those are the types of meetings that I wish I was sitting in on, and just kind of like there's so many little inputs, and I think everyone that loves something has an opinion about it, and it's exactly how I kind of come at things, because I've always got feelings on that and stuff. But there's so many times where I'm sitting back and I'm thinking like, oh God, I wish I would have loved to have seen, like, if they'd kind of taken this and maybe twisted that a little bit and just turned a couple knobs here and there. But it's so cool to think about, like, how much fun you guys probably have just being able to build out some of these opportunities to showcase the content that's coming down the pike, and really kind of show off some of that fun stuff, and knowing ahead of time what's going to be happening before maybe some other teams have gotten a chance to really dig in and see, like, oh, really, we're doing that. That's okay.
No, again, I feel really lucky. Like, I was actually speaking to Chris Alcock recently, and he's been working on stuff for Later Adventures, and he sent me a little scene that he'd written, and that, it got me excited. I was like, oh, what, we're doing that? Like, and so I feel just as excited about creating this stuff as like, you know, any other fan, like, of the game.
Man, that's crazy. I need to talk to him. He's on my list of wants to dive into. Hopefully after the second book comes out and I get a chance to read it, and I actually do a proper finishing part 2 of the first book. I'll see if I can convince him to come on and talk with me and stuff.
Yeah, Chris is great.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all you guys are. I don't legit, like, I can't think of anyone on the team that I've talked to that I am just like, I don't really want to talk to them again. It's like, no, there's I mean, outside of Joni ghosting me all the time, which just absolutely breaks my heart. I love talking to everyone. So if there was ever I mean, genuinely, if I could work for the studio and just not like walk up and just be like, John, I know that you're super busy and you've got little passion projects that you would love to just do all the fun stuff with. If I could have just the podcast, I promise I would treat it right. I would treat it so right. It would be taken care of. It would get little treats all the time, and I would give it all the love it deserved. And then I'd probably spin off a rare one that would dive into the history of the company and start doing some each game deep dives into that. And then eventually I'd kick up another podcast for Everwild, and we'd be diving into that one. And I'd take good care, and you wouldn't have to worry.
I'll pass that clip on to the higher ups and see what they say.
They'd be like, well, first off, he has to move to England because that's not gonna work. And second, he has to figure out what a CV is compared to a resume, and then work that out. And then he might actually get past the HR. That's if Microsoft likes him. Well, I don't want to keep you much longer. I have to try and reset my sleep schedule, which is hard because I'm not tired at all right now, but I have to figure that out. So, because technically in 24 hours, I'm going to have to be awake in 6 hours, and I haven't slept yet. So that's going to be a fun one to work out.
Yeah.
So
I don't envy you.
Oh no, don't ever. You've got a much better position than where I'm sitting. So please. But thank you for coming on.
That's a pleasure.
I love chatting with you. There's so many people that I still want to get John McFarlane back on to do another interview, because the interview that I got him on was when his laptop was in the shop and he had to do it all on the phone. And I was so bummed about that. And I felt so bad because I was like, man, I'm being really selfish here. So I need to have like a proper apology for him and stuff. But it was really good to get a chance to talk with you, because I feel like not only have you given something to me as far as the podcast is concerned, but I've genuinely loved all the stuff that you do. And I'm just so happy that that you, John, Joe, like everyone at the team has just been so positive about the game always.
No, and well, thank you for like, honestly, the Keelhauled podcast, like, it's a great thing, and we're amazed when it, like, I know there's people who listen to it on the team, so it's incredible that you keep on doing it. And yeah, thank you for being such a great part of the community as well.
Oh no, that's easy. I just wanted to start talking about this game, and people came and apparently wanted to listen to me talk about the game. So I don't know how that happened, but it's because you guys made a really awesome game, and it's because, well, honestly, it's because of the showcase that you guys put out, that it's so alluring as a pirate fan in general. So please keep it up, and hopefully I'm looking forward to this next season with the adventures and the mysteries and stuff, and you guys are killing it. So I'm excited.
We never even touched on mysteries, but yeah, that'll remain a mystery.
Oh, dang it. And it's too, because I have it on my notes too. I was like, oh yeah, I wanted to talk about mysteries and ARGs getting put into videos and stuff, but
well, yeah, you'll have to keep your eyes peeled for things in the background, like, of our videos. Like,
you've trained us well.
Nowhere is safe. Nowhere is safe. Like, mysteries will touch all.
It's awesome. Well, John, thank you so much for coming by. And I can't wait to see how the rest of this year is going to go, because just the way you guys are talking about it, I don't know how you can top a pirate's life, but you guys are talking like it's going to be even bigger than a pirate's life. So I'm excited at this point.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I think this year is genuinely going to be awesome. And yeah, thank you so much for having me on. It's been great chatting to you.
All right, pirates, that's going to do it for this episode of the Keelhauled podcast. Thank you again to John McMurtry, the video producer over at Rare, who was kind enough to give his time to me and just make this a much easier episode to make, because I didn't have to try and talk around Shrouded Island spoils, which I was hoping to kind of put off till next week's episode, when we get into the Gold Hoarder episode with the community members from the Patreon. They're the ones that are going to be jumping in to talk about things. I definitely have some thoughts and some questions for them regarding some of the things as far as like the Pirate Legend content with the weapons and the changes that were going to be done to achievements or things like that. Just overall impressions. And then I think next week, the week afterwards, if things go well, I have another streamer that's going to be coming on for an interview for the top of March, I believe is what we have penciled in. I need to double check on that as I'm speaking it, so I'm probably going to be wrong or have to change it in the future. So but I wanted to thank you all for listening to this episode. Much longer episode than normal, so hopefully you enjoyed the conversation that we had. And yeah, so if you want to get a hold of me, there's plenty of ways to do that. Head over to Twitter at CAPT_LOGUN. You can always send an email in if you want to be read out on the podcast at CAPTLOGUN@gmail.com. Also, if you want, join the podcast Discord. The Discord has a Sherpa program where you can join up and start learning how to play Sea of Thieves. If you're not sure, we've got some masters of the sea out there, kind of teaching people how to learn the ropes per se, as well as physically get better at cannon shots, PvP, how to get the most gold per hour, things like that. So that's always going on in the Discord. Just reach out to them if you have any questions, or if you just want to come hang out and chat with other pirates. There's plenty of ways to do so. So with that, pirates, I think that's going to do it. So thank you. I love you. And I look forward to sailing with you on the Sea of Thieves.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. Smart shows for interesting people. Check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.
Hey there, my name's Jameson, or Big Cat.
And I am Brenna, or Mother Goose.
And together, we are the hosts of the DL Weekly Gaming News.
Each week, we bring you the top stories from last week, as well as something you might have missed.
Our goal is to start a conversation about what's going on in the world of gaming.
And every week, we have a special guest join us in the chat room, where we discuss a different gamer-related topic and learn more about our guests in the 60-second download.
And if that isn't enough, we also have Slim Jims.
So come and hang out with us every week and join in on the conversation.
Good luck and have fun, everybody.
And remember, keep your goose loose.
In a world where solid-state electronics and vacuum tubes are still meta, people never stopped loving atomic-powered everything. A chosen 500 stepped inside a subterranean vault to be spared the nuclear horror of the inevitable Great War. 25 years later, they emerge after the fallout settles to retake Appalachia. Among them, two former rivals whose blood feud will tear West Virginia apart in their epic struggle for survival. Chad, a vault bro who has a strength of 15, an intelligence of 2, and is a complete wasteland dickhead. Simon, a complicated anti-hero who chooses light and hope, but accidentally becomes a cannibal and wakes up naked and afraid with a Scorch Beast queen after a date goes terribly wrong. What? I mean, it's a wild wasteland, right? This dark humor radio drama will have you driving off the road and crawling out from under the fallout. 2 men, 1 wasteland, and so many nukes. Chad, a Fallout 76 podcast, rated R, now streaming on your holotape player podcasty thing.